You work yourself to death at a cheap desk job, fully expecting to reincarnate as a legendary hero with a powerful system. Instead, you open your eyes and realize your soul is trapped inside a cracked, dusty bronze mirror. To make matters worse, you immediately plummet straight to the freezing, dark bottom of a lake. You have no limbs, no cheat codes, and your only hope of survival is a passing family of mortal farmers who think you are a useless piece of trash. Let us see how a simple mirror turns a struggling family of farmers into a dominant, immortal clan. We kick things off with a chaotic aerial showdown between high-flying cultivators blasting spell energy everywhere, and someone is screaming demands for the legendary secret records of Moonlight Essence. This guy wrapped in purple energy is surfing on a giant flying sword, trying to pull off a fast getaway, but his enemies are absolutely breathing down his neck. The attackers offer to merely destroy his cultivation base if he just hands over the secret arts, which is basically the worst trade deal in history. Like anyone is actually falling for that. Then, things get weird. We hard cut to a completely ordinary guy wearing glasses who is just casually floating mid-air, enjoying the gorgeous mountain views below. But wait, how is he even flying? He is utterly lost, with giant punctuation marks literally manifesting his confusion in the air. Gravity suddenly remembers he exists, and he starts plummeting down the snowy peaks. That is when it hits him. He was just grinding through a brutal all-nighter at his cheap apartment, meaning he literally worked himself to death. While tumbling down the mountain, he accepts the harsh reality. His overworked modern body is gone, and he has officially kicked the bucket. His vision begins to fade as long white hair starts whipping around his face, and the freezing mountain winds completely numb his senses. A mysterious figure draped in elegant white robes stands on the edge of a snowy, misty peak, looking incredibly dramatic amidst a flurry of falling petals. Suddenly, everything goes dark, and when he finally wakes up, he realizes he is trapped inside a mirror. He reaches out with a ghostly hand, touching the icy glass surface that pulses with a strange, faint glow. Suddenly, his spectral white-haired form starts channeling insane blue energy as a brilliant light erupts all around him inside his new reflective home. The mirror starts to levitate, turning into a mini cosmic vacuum as it absorbs the pure essence of the sun and the moon. It floats high up in the sky, a beautiful ancient bronze disk drinking in raw spiritual power straight from the heavens. That is when he puts two and two together. He did not reincarnate as a legendary hero, he is literally a sentient spirit artifact. The mirror plummets down like a shooting star, leaving a bright trail of light as it dives toward a dark lake below. It hits the water with a massive splash, sinking straight down into the cold, dark depths. It settles on the lakebed, surrounded by weeds and curious little fish, sending a soft beam of light shooting back up to the surface. Our mirror spirit can only sigh. Since he is completely stuck at the bottom of a lake, he decides his only real option is to just chill and passively absorb the moonlight. While the fish swim around his glowing body, he starts wondering how cultivators treat sentient gear, praying nobody tries to factory reset his brain. The next morning, a gorgeous sunrise blankets the mountain valley, casting golden light over the peaceful river flowing below. We see a pair of bare feet wading through the crystal-clear, shallow water. A young guy manages to snatch a massive, plump fish with his bare hands, splashing water everywhere like a total champion. Meet Li Xiangping, the energetic third son of the local Li family, and he is absolutely thrilled with his massive catch. He chuckles and drops the struggling fish into his basket, ready to head home with a fantastic dinner. Xiangping looks up in surprise when a friendly voice calls out to him from the riverbank. It is a young local kid herding a bunch of white ducks with a wooden staff, greeting him warmly. Xiangping smiles and waves back, asking if he is out on duck duty today. The kid excitedly spills some hot village gossip about a giant stag getting bitten by a snake right at the entrance. Xiangping could not care less about village drama, immediately flexing his freshly caught fish instead. The duck herder is completely amazed, his eyes lighting up at the sight of the big fish. But duty calls, and the kid mentions he has to get back to his ducks before his older brother loses his mind. Xiangping waves him off, watching the kid sprint down the path chasing after his flock. Once the kid is gone, Xiangping goes back to fishing but notices a weird bright reflection glowing from the riverbed. He freezes, staring down into the water with pure curiosity. He reaches down into the flowing water, trying to feel around for whatever is shining so brightly. He plunges his arm beneath the surface, splashing around through the thick river weeds. His fingers wrap around something solid and perfectly round buried deep in the mud. He pulls his hand out, grinning widely as he reveals a cracked, old bronze mirror. He inspects his reflection, thinking it looks exactly like the cracked mirror his aunt has at home. He decides it is way too foggy and blurry, concluding it is probably just a useless piece of trash. Inside the dark basket, our mirror spirit sighs, deciding to just take things one slow step at a time for now. Later that evening, the sun begins to dip below the hills, painting the sky in gorgeous warm colors. As Xiangping walks up the stone path near Lijing village, a woman calls out his name from behind. He stops and turns, watching a woman in a traditional dress walk up the path toward him. This is Sister Yun, a beautiful and elegant girl from the village. Xiang Ping greets her with a huge smile, immediately offering to share his fresh catch. He holds up his basket to show off the fish, telling her she absolutely has to take some home for dinner. Sister Yun politely covers her mouth, acting a bit shy about accepting such a generous gift. Xiang Ping insists, holding up a fish tied with a rope and practically forcing her to take it. She finally accepts, giving him a sweet smile before heading on her way. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the village's beautiful terraced fields, glowing in the warm afternoon light. A couple of older village men are standing by the edge, watching the local farmers hard at work. Tian Shoushui, the father of Tian Yun, comments on how incredibly lucky the Li family is to have 4 strong sons. The patriarch of the Li family, Li Mutian, stands nearby leaning on his wooden staff, staring out over the land. The two fathers chat about the fields, noting the land has its own wisdom and they can finally take a breather for a few days. Tian Shoushui recalls the terrifying sight of powerful cultivators flying over them, forcing everyone to bow in sheer panic. He sighs, noting that while the imperial court leaves them alone deep in the mountains, they also have zero protection if things go sideways. He wonders if they should pack up and move before some crazy immortal battle accidentally wipes their entire village off the map. Li Muqian firmly slams his hoe into the dirt, making it crystal clear he is not going anywhere. He argues that their family has worked this land for over 2 centuries, and they are not about to abandon their ancestors' graves. Right on cue, a voice calls out from down the path as Xiang Ping comes running up the steps, waving his arms. His second brother, Li Shanchu, smiles warmly as he watches the energetic kid run toward them. His eldest brother, Li Tongya, also watches with a gentle smile, noticing the massive load of fish Xiang Ping is carrying. Xiang Ping proudly boasts about his catch, promising everyone an absolute feast tonight. Tongya playfully pats his head, completely amused by his younger brother's endless energy. Li Muqian tells them to head back home since the sun is officially setting. Night falls, and the cozy lights of the Li family estate glow warmly in the dark. Inside, a delicious dinner is waiting on the table, but one of the brothers is still missing in action. Chanchu asks where their youngest brother Jinger went, since he left to pick mulberries this morning and has not returned. Right then, the youngest brother, Li Qijing, bursts into the courtyard holding a basket and excitedly yelling that he found a literal treasure. Instead of being disgusted, the dad is absolutely thrilled, giving him a big thumbs up and praising him for outperforming his older brothers. Xiang Ping's face instantly drops in pure disbelief. He literally worked his butt off catching fish all day only to get completely outshined by a basket of rats. The mother, Lu Linyun, steps out of the kitchen with a fresh plate of food, telling everyone to sit down and eat. The family gathers around the table, enjoying a massive, delicious feast of fish and traditional dishes. A quiet night scene of the courtyard shows a little mouse running across the floor while the family enjoys dinner. A gorgeous full moon shines brightly in the night sky, casting a peaceful glow over the entire village. The wind gently rustles the trees as the night grows deeper and quieter. After dinner, Xiang Ping sits quietly in the courtyard, deeply lost in his own thoughts. When his dad walks by, Xiang Ping decides to call out to him, suddenly remembering the weird object he fished out of the river. Xiang Ping approaches him, explaining all about the strange old mirror he found earlier. He pulls the cracked bronze mirror from his pocket and presents it to his dad under the moonlight. His dad takes the mirror, inspecting it closely and wondering what kind of metal it is, since it definitely is not iron or copper. Suddenly, the moonlight beams directly onto the cracked mirror, and the thing begins to hum with raw power. The mirror erupts with a brilliant, blinding light, completely shocking both of them. Xiang Ping yells in surprise, shielding his eyes from the sudden burst of spiritual energy. His dad quickly senses the danger, telling him to shut up because something is definitely heading their way. They stare toward the dark grass outside, hearing a rustling sound as a faint line of blue energy cuts through the air. The dad immediately draws his sharp sword, preparing for a potential fight. With his sword drawn, he steps forward protectively, ready to defend his family from whatever crazy entity this mirror just summoned. The night is dead silent, and the moon sits high above the quiet roofs of the village. Inside, the eldest son, Li Tongya, is calmly sipping tea, totally oblivious to the drama unfolding outside. Suddenly, someone bursts through the door calling for him in a total panic. Xiang Ping rushes in, gasping for breath, and tells him that their dad wants them to grab their weapons and head to the entrance immediately. Tongya looks up, completely shocked. Chanshu demands to know if their dad is alright and what exactly is going down. Xiang Ping grimaces, holding his breath and warning that there must be enemies at the door. Chanshu grabs his weapon, telling Xiang Ping to hide their mother and youngest brother in the backyard while he runs to help their dad. Tongya nods in agreement. Outside, the wind begins to howl as a massive storm rolls in. Rain starts pouring down heavily, slamming against the tiled roofs. The sound of the pouring rain fills the air, echoing across the quiet courtyard. Clad in his straw raincoat, the dad barks orders, telling Chanchu and Tongya to sweep the entire house while he goes to check the fields. His sons nod, acknowledging his commands through the pouring rain. Tongya watches his dad, telling him to stay safe as they split up. Li Muqian heads out into the stormy fields, drawing his sharp sword. He cuts through the tall grass, searching for any hidden intruders. He swings his blade again, clearing the wet reeds, when suddenly a pair of glowing eyes appears in the shadows. Mutian freezes, staring directly at the creepy eyes lurking right in front of him. He watches as a figure suddenly bolts out from the tall weeds. The mysterious figure stumbles blindly through the rainy marsh, clearly in a total panic. Mutian narrows his eyes, locking his gaze onto the fleeing suspect. With a swift, powerful lunge, he swings his blade down. The intruder drops to his knees in sheer terror, begging his eldest uncle to spare his life. Mutian stops his blade just in time, recognizing the terrified kid as Li Yasheng, a distant cousin from the Branch family. Mutian stares down at him with a dark, stern look, asking if that is really cousin Yasheng. His sons run up with weapons drawn, completely surprised to find Yasheng sitting in the wet mud. Tongya points his spear, demanding to know what he is doing sneaking around in the dark. Shivering and caked in mud, Yasheng stammers nervously as he tries to explain himself. With a deeply guilty look, Yasheng confesses that he only came out here to steal some melons. Chanchu watches the suspicious kid from the shadows, his expression completely unreadable. Lightning crackles across the sky, lighting up the entire village in a flash of bright blue. Back inside, the family gathers. Yasheng has been sent away, but the brothers are starting to question their dad's extreme reaction. Chanchu argues he was just trying to steal a melon, saying they could have let him off easy instead of making a scene and offending his branch of the family. Tongya chimes in, looking concerned about the rising tensions. Mutian turns his back, coldly stating that there is no his family or my family, because there is only one Li family and he is the one who calls the shots. Chanchu walks in, reporting that everything has been arranged exactly as ordered. He explains that their youngest brother and mother are guarding the doors, ready to sound the alarm if anyone gets close. Mutian closes his eyes, sighing. He admits Yasheng is usually just a harmless moocher, and he normally would not care. But tonight is different, and he warns that if word of this leaks out, their entire family will be reduced to ashes. Chanchu is shocked, asking what exactly happened tonight. Mutian turns to Shangping, telling him to show his brothers the goods. Shangping reaches under a cloth and pulls out the old bronze mirror he fished out of the river. The brothers gather around the table, staring down at the dusty, cracked object with intense curiosity. Shangping explains how he found it, asking if it is really just an ordinary mirror. Chanchu takes a closer look, but admits he does not see anything mysterious about it. Mutian smiles, mentioning he has not gotten around to fixing the hole in the roof, which actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise. He holds the mirror directly under the beam of moonlight coming through the broken roof, and it immediately starts to glow with insane power. The brothers watch in absolute awe, the brilliant magical light reflecting in their eyes. The mirror's surface begins swirling with a cosmic deep blue spiritual energy. Glowing particles fill the small room, and Tongya gasps, admitting he has not seen anything this beautiful since he was a kid. Mutian laughs proudly, saying even he has never seen such an incredible magical artifact in his entire life. He gets serious again, reminding them that if word of this leaks, it will bring absolute extermination to their clan. Tongya points out that if an immortal lost this, they might cast a spell to track it down tomorrow. He suggests returning it to the owner might earn them a massive reward that would benefit their family forever. Suddenly, Chanchu slams his hand down, calling complete bullshit on that plan. Mutian looks up in shock as Chanchu angrily points out that many immortals are bloodthirsty monsters who would gladly slaughter them to cover their tracks. He adds that who knows how long the mirror was in the water. If the owner was looking for it, they would have found it ages ago, meaning the owner is likely dead. But then a chilling realization hits Chanchu, and he wonders if that brat Yasheng saw anything today. Shangping quickly replies that he only showed it to their dad inside, and Yasheng was still far away in the fields. Hearing this, Chanchu grabs his sword hilt with a deadly, serious look. Without hesitating, he draws his blade and leaps toward the door. Chanchu's cold-blooded survival instincts instantly kick in. If there is even a 1% chance Yasheng saw something, he is ready to silence him forever. Back outside, Chanchu gets kicked hard to the ground, with Yasheng mocking him for treating simple melons like priceless treasures. Yasheng sneers, asking why they are hiding like thieves with a guilty conscience. He whispers that it makes perfect sense, pointing out that since Li Muqian has been keeping secrets for 20 years, he must have some amazing treasure hidden away. Yasheng glares down from a stone wall under the storm clouds, complaining that they cannot even get dirt from between their fingers because the family is so stingy. Yasheng's face is shown close up, dripping with greed as he complains about not getting a fair share once Muqian dies. From the background, Ye Sheng's angry brother spots a younger kid in the courtyard and tells the brat to get over here. He grabs the kid roughly by his collar, dragging him off the ground. He slams him down, demanding to know how he managed to mess up his job again. Shivering in fear, the younger brother says he did nothing wrong, but his brother commands him to go steal 2 more melons from Shanping's house tomorrow anyway. We get a close-up of the older brother's sinister face as he plans to use the kid as a tool to spy on the main family. Chanchu, still furious, shouts that he will go kill him, but his dad commands him to get back here. Li Muxian glares at him, his expression completely stern and unyielding. The brothers stand around in complete silence under their dad's intimidating gaze. Tongya steps forward, pointing out that Ye Sheng is a heartless leech who bites the hand that feeds him, meaning he will eventually leak secrets and ruin their family. He draws a hand across his throat, stating it is better to let Ye Sheng die first than risk complete extermination. Chanchu stands in silence, realizing just how ruthless his older brother can be when the family is on the line. Muchin sighs, asking Tongya if he would kill his own youngest brother too if the kid happened to slip up and say the wrong thing. He steps forward with determination, firmly stating that their family does not have such cowards. Mushin climbs onto a wooden table, reaching up toward the high rafters of the ceiling. He reaches into a hidden compartment on top of the beam, telling his sons there are some things he should finally share. He pulls down a dusty, heavy wooden box, telling them that he originally left home when he was only 13. Sitting at the table, Mushin explains he was forced to join the army when General Yang conscripted troops along the ancient road to attack the Shunyue. He carefully unlatches and opens the old wooden box, which creaks on its hinges. Inside the box rests a collection of strange items, including a wooden scroll, a yellow talisman, a beast bone, and a glowing, colorful gemstone. Mushin explains that after returning home he wrote down a battle technique on this wooden scroll, though it only makes you more agile and has 0 magical properties. Next, he points to the yellow talisman, explaining it was given to soldiers to resist witchcraft, though its magical energy has long since faded. Finally, he displays the looted bones and feathers, saying tomorrow he will take the colored stone to town and pretend it is just a cheap trinket. He holds up the glowing blue stone, explaining that if Ye Sheng saw something, they can just claim it was this cheap, shimmering piece of colored glass. Chanchu smiles, praising his dad for being so incredibly prepared. Mutian sighs, noting it is just a pity that Ye Sheng is such a complete waste of space. Mutian turns his gaze back to the mirror, stating they need to figure out how to actually use this magical treasure. Inside the mirror, the spirit of the white-haired cultivator watches them, observing their actions. The spirit notes that although this family comes from a simple farming background, several of its members are surprisingly outstanding. He evaluates the dad, Li Muqian, noting his excellent courage and insight, while the eldest son is generous and handles things smoothly. He looks at the second son, Li Tongya, praising him as brave, sharp, decisive, and ready to fight. Lastly, he looks at Shangping and Shijing, noting they are both highly intelligent, quick-witted, and clever. The spirit realizes that if he wants to tread the long road to immortality, he cannot do it without the manpower and resources of this family. He decides the Li family is his best choice for now, especially since he just sensed something north of the village calling out to him. He realizes that whatever is in the north seems to be a part of him or highly crucial to his power. Back in the room, Chanchu suddenly notices a change and shouts to his brother that it lit up. A crack of energy appears on the mirror as light begins to seep through the ancient surface. Chanchu excitedly holds up the glowing mirror, urging his brother Tongya to try holding it. Tongya reaches out, his fingers touching the warm, glowing surface of the cracked mirror. The reflection inside ripples like water as the brothers watch in complete silence. Tongya's eyes widen as he stares at the glowing patterns in confusion. He mutters that it is indeed true, the mirror possesses some sort of divine power. He holds the mirror firmly, noticing a distinct trail of glowing light pointing in a single direction. He explains that no matter how he turns it, the light always points directly north, acting exactly like a compass. Inside the mirror, the spirit smiles, impressed that the young man figured out the mirror's guidance function so quickly. Tongya notes that the direction the light is pointing corresponds to the location of Moon-Gazing Lake. Chanchu immediately suggests that he and Shangping should take the mirror and head north to investigate what is hidden there. Tongya looks hesitant, noting that trying to touch an immortal destiny with a mortal body is extremely risky, but he agrees that this might be the golden opportunity their family needs to finally rise to prominence. Mushin makes the final call, telling them to head out toward the village entrance. The two brothers make their way through the village streets under the dark, starry night sky. Some villagers passing by ask Uncle Muchin where they are heading so late, and he casually replies that they are delivering some goods to the local master. Once the villagers are out of sight, Mutian tells his sons to go and be careful. He pats their shoulders, sending them off into the dark woods with a protective gesture. Chanchu and Tongya slip off the stone path, quietly climbing down the steep wooden steps into the dark wilderness. They push through the tall, wet grass, moving silently to avoid drawing any unwanted attention. Tongya navigates the dark woods, mentioning that Moon-Gazing Lake is about a half-hour walk along the ancient Lee Road. The mirror glows softly in Chanchu's hands, casting a pale light over the wet ground. Tongya stops, pointing out they cannot take the main road if they want to remain unseen, so they must cut through the reed marshes. As they trek through the marsh, Chanchu comments that the mirror is getting hotter and hotter, meaning they are getting very close. Tongya tells him to be extremely careful from now on. Chanchu looks at his brother, asking if an immortal destiny is truly something ordinary mortals like them should even be touching. Suddenly, a flock of blackbirds is startled by their presence, flapping their wings as they escape from the reeds. The birds soar high into the air, silhouetted against the massive, glowing full moon. The two brothers stand silently in the marshes, watching the birds fly away over the calm, misty lake. Meanwhile, back at the village, Muxian sits patiently outside the home of Master Han Wengshu. He waits silently in the courtyard, knowing his sons are out there risking their lives for the family's future. Mutian trusts his sons, murmuring to himself that Tongya is smart enough to know his own limits. Inside the master's home, the scholar Han Wenshu serves Mutian some freshly brewed wine, welcoming him warmly. Mutian takes a sip, noting that the terrifying cultivators flying overhead a few days ago have finally stopped appearing. Han Wenshu pours more hot wine, recalling a story from when he was 12 years old and an immortal visited their town. He sips his wine, explaining that the immortal was searching for enlightened children, but only found 3 out of over 1,000 candidates. The scene shifts to a dramatic view of the two men sitting under the moonlit sky, as Han Wenshu sighs that immortal destiny is truly hard to come by. The narrator notes that facing a possible opportunity, Li Mutian made a rational choice that best suited his family's long-term interests. A close-up of a cup of wine reflecting the full moon is shown. In the reflection of the cup, we see Mutian's face as he makes his silent, heavy decision. The narrator reveals that this risky choice might cause him to lose his 2 beloved children on this dangerous expedition. But even with the intense guilt and pain, Mutian is willing to risk everything because a chance at immortal destiny is simply too rare to ignore. The golden text reiterates that immortal destiny is hard to come by. Back at Moon-Gazing Lake, Chanchu suddenly spots something reflecting on the water, shouting that he found it. Back at the lake, Chanchu peers toward a small sandbar, pointing out that the glowing piece of jade over there should be exactly what they are searching for. He moves to step into the water, but Tongya immediately calls out, telling him to stop. Chanchu begs his brother, asking to let him go over and retrieve the treasure. Tongya grabs his arm in a tight grip, telling him to hold on a second. He orders Chanchu to hold the mirror and wait on the bank, deciding that he will go over to get it himself. Pointing to the sky, Tongya gives him strict instructions, saying if the moon reaches that position and he has not returned, Chanchu needs to hide the mirror and run home. Chanchu hesitates for a moment but ultimately nods, agreeing to wait on the shore. Tongya strips off his heavy outer robes, preparing to dive into the icy water. Shirtless and determined, Tongya steps directly into the cold, splashing waves. He dives under as blackbirds circle overhead, swimming quickly toward the glowing sandbar. He paddles through the deep water, keeping his eyes locked onto his target. The birds fly overhead in a massive, noisy flock as the wind continues to howl. Tongya finally pulls himself onto the rocky sandbar, catching his breath. He walks along the muddy ground, looking around and whispering that the jade should be right around here. He searches the empty shore but finds absolutely nothing. He crouches down, sifting through piles of river rocks but still comes up empty. Just as he is about to give up, his hand brushes a smooth stone, and he gasps that it is here. He picks up the glowing stone, feeling a rush of spiritual energy as he reads the carved characters about the Taiyin Qi nourishing wheel. He inspects the strange jade closely under the moonlight, noting the incredibly intricate, ancient patterns. Deciding not to waste any more time, he prepares to take the jade back to show his father and brother. He dives back into the water, swimming swiftly toward the shore where Chanchu is waiting. Tongya pushes through the tall reeds, looking for his younger brother. Suddenly, Chanchu pops out from the tall grass, waving his arms and calling out that he is over here. Tongya hands him the jade piece, letting him know he successfully retrieved the treasure. Chanchu holds the smooth stone, marveling at how it seems to pulse with ancient light. Suddenly, as Chanchu holds the jade near the bronze mirror, a bright arc of energy connects the two items. Chanchu gasps in surprise, wondering what on earth is happening as the light grows brighter. A stream of glowing white light shoots directly from the jade and drills straight into the mirror. Bright streaks of cosmic energy erupt all around them, lighting up the entire lake and sky. The water ripples violently as the surrounding spiritual energy gathers into a single point. They watch in absolute amazement as the pale moonlight seems to fall straight into their basket. The mirror glows with a blinding white light, completely absorbing the essence of the moon and the jade piece. Inside the mirror, the spirit of the white-haired cultivator is suddenly bombarded with a massive flood of information. The spirit gasps in shock as a massive rush of memories and power flows through his consciousness. He screams as the intense energy bonds with his spirit, upgrading his level and power. As feathers swirl around him in the spiritual realm, the white-haired cultivator's form becomes much more solid and refined. He slowly reaches out his hand, feeling the incredible new power coursing through his spiritual body. He floats majestically in the cosmic void, surrounded by glowing symbols of the newly acquired cultivation art. Back in reality, the bright light finally fades, leaving the two brothers standing silently in the dark reeds. Chanchu holds the now silent mirror, asking his brother what they should do next. Tongya smiles gently, telling him to put it away and head home first. The next morning, the warm rays of the sun shine through the windows of the Lee family home. The bronze mirror sits on a wooden stand on the table, looking completely ordinary again. Li Mutian listens as his sons recount the night's events, asking if the jade piece really just turned into light and entered the mirror. Chanchu confirms that it's absolutely true, and both he and his brother saw it with their own eyes. Mutian sighs with relief, praising Tongya and Xiangping for a job well done, noting that Chanchu was so worried he was tossing and turning all night. Tongya smiles, asking if their father was also worried about them. He asks if their mother and fourth brother are all right. Mutian confirms they are fine, explaining that their mother only knows someone tried to steal melons, since they kept the rest of the incident a total secret. Tongya is glad to hear that. Suddenly, Mutian changes the subject, asking Chanchu if he knows exactly how many acres of farmland their family currently owns. He explains that when he returned from the army, he bought over 10 acres of fields, which added to the 5 acres from their grandfather and other scattered plots. Tongya answers that it totals nearly 20 acres, but wonders why their father is suddenly asking about this. Mutian explains that while 20 acres is enough to feed them and let them study, it won't be enough to sustain the family if it splits up in the future. He stares at the mirror on the table, noting that if even a tiny bit of information leaks, it will bring absolute disaster to their clan. He recalls how wealthy families in the city lived in large compounds, studying to become officials and practicing martial arts. We see a flashback of a bustling city street with carriage drivers and grand mansions belonging to powerful, wealthy families. Mutian tells his sons that instead of splitting up, they must stand together, learn clan laws, and practice martial arts to lead soldiers. He states that their Lee family has accumulated strength for 200 years, and it is finally time to rise. Mutian ponders the path of martial arts, noting that the ancient road is incredibly dangerous and practicing is a matter of life and death. He places his hand on the mirror, explaining that they must seek self-preservation first. Tongya listens intently, looking deeply reflective. Mutian suddenly chuckles, telling his sons to stop talking nonsense and get ready to work. He commands them to follow him out, saying they will proceed exactly as discussed. We get an aerial view of the grand compound they plan to build, with its front and back yards nestled against the back mountain. Mutian explains his grand vision, saying they will completely rebuild the entire residence to establish their family legacy. He plans to dig up the 2 melon fields in front of the house to build defensive walls, ensuring they never have to worry about intruders like Yesheng again. A beautiful scene of the snow-covered courtyard shows the side rooms and the grand hall they will build. He also plans to build a pond in the center of the courtyard, letting Xiangping catch more fish to put inside. The courtyard will be paved with stone bricks, leaving plenty of space for the children to practice martial arts in the future. Finally, he smiles and mentions that once the renovation is finished, Chanchu will marry the second daughter of the Ren family with great fanfare. The text details the construction of the ancestral hall, where spirit tablets of their ancestors will be set up. Mutian looks out over the snow-covered construction site, proud of the family's progress. He also plans to build a secret room next to the ancestral hall, placing a stone platform inside where the mirror will be safely hidden. We see a worker placing the mirror onto its designated stone pedestal in the dimly lit secret chamber. The mirror rests securely on its stand, glowing with a soft protective aura. An aerial view shows the finished, magnificent new compound, fully rebuilt and looking like a small fortress. Sometime later, guests arrive at the grand entrance, commenting on how incredibly magnificent the new house looks. A servant or family member welcomes them warmly, inviting Uncle Ernu and Little Zay inside. This is Chen Ernu and his son Chen Zay, distant relatives who have come to visit the Li family. Tongya welcomes them inside, apologizing for having Chanchu prepare food instead of their aunt, who is currently sick. He smiles warmly, inviting them to have a feast and take some food back for their aunt as well. Ernu is deeply moved, praising Mutian for raising such gentle, kind, and respectful children. Ernu notices the large stone locks in the courtyard, wondering if the Li family is practicing martial arts. He greets Mutian, noting that he hasn't seen him in a long time, and jokingly asking why he seems to have gotten thinner. Mutian tells Xiangping to go and inform his mother to serve the meal. Inside the grand dining hall, the family and their guests sit around a large table piled high with delicious food. Ernyu drinks a toast, gratefully recalling how Muchin rented land to him and helped him survive when he first arrived in the village. He declares that he will remember the Lee family's kindness in his heart forever. Tongya raises his cup with a polite smile, saying they are all family and there is no need to be so formal. He pours more wine, expressing his happiness at seeing the family thrive under their father's leadership. Mutian sips his wine, silently reflecting that the Lee family is indeed very different from before. Later that night, the compound is quiet, and the bronze mirror rests on its pedestal in the secret chamber. A young boy is sitting cross-legged on the floor in front of the mirror, meditating under the beam of moonlight. It is little Qijing, focusing deeply as he attempts to sense the mirror's spiritual energy. Suddenly, Qijing opens his eyes in shock as a strange sound echoes through the chamber. The bronze mirror begins to pulse with a blinding white light, ready to reveal its secrets to the young cultivator. Back at the dinner feast, the family and guests continue chatting in the bright courtyard. The young boy, Qijing, sits near the door, noticing his father staring at him. Mutian drinks his wine calmly as Qijing sits quietly beside him. Suddenly, Qijing leans in and whispers in his ear that the mirror just lit up. Mutian's eyes widen in absolute shock, his eyebrows twitching as he registers the news. He quickly stands up, telling everyone that he is getting old and cannot sit for too long, instructing them to continue chatting while he goes to rest. Guest Chen Ernu agrees, mentioning it's getting late and he and his son should head back as well. Tongya politely offers to see them out. We see them walking down the stone pathway together, leaving the courtyard. Meanwhile, Mutian and Qijing walk in the dark toward the ancestral hall. Mutian lights 3 incense sticks and places them in the burner, bowing before the ancestral tablets. A heavy click echoes as they unlock the entrance to the secret chamber. They step inside, finding the secret room illuminated by a beam of bright white light. The bronze mirror is shining like a beacon, sending a pillar of light up toward the roof. Mutian tells Qijing to go quickly and call his brothers here. Qijing nods with a serious look and runs out to fetch them. Meanwhile, inside the mirror, the spirit of the white-haired cultivator is glowing with blue energy, his spiritual form fully restored. He opens his eyes, murmuring that 3 years have passed and wondering if he really slept for 3 years this time. He looks around at the stone chamber, noting that the sky is beginning to brighten outside. He notes that the Lee family has changed so much, realizing how much larger and grander their residence has become. He realizes that before his slumber, he could only sense the immediate surroundings of the mirror. But now, his spiritual consciousness has expanded so much that it easily covers the entire new compound. He adds that the limit of the moonlight power within him has also multiplied several times over. He reaches out with his glowing hand, touching the interface of his consciousness as a scroll of information begins to unfold before him. Mystical glowing characters fill his mind, revealing the Tai-Yin Qi nourishing wheel method, which is a powerful cultivation technique. The spirit realizes that this information must have been stuffed into his mind when the piece of jade merged with him. He reads the scroll further, noting that the magic technique also mentions there are 6 distinct realms of cultivation. He lists the 6 realms as Qi condensation, foundation establishment, purple mansion, golden core, nascent soul, and deification. A dramatic image of a cultivator ascending through the clouds is displayed. He notes that there are also several spells, and after cultivating 6 wheels, one can activate spiritual energy according to the magic technique. The white-haired spirit takes a deep breath, preparing to test his newfound abilities. He hovers calmly, channeling the blue energy around him. He reads about the mystic bead spirit worshipping technique, noting that it looks somewhat like the wicked demonic arts described in books. But in reality, this mystic bead talisman seed is completely harmless to the host, offering numerous benefits instead. The spell allows the mirror body to draw Tai-Yin moonlight to condense a mystical talisman seed. Implanting this talisman seed into another person's dantian can assist them in their cultivation. And if the host wants to invite the talisman seed out of the mirror and nurture it, they need another spell contained within. The spell is officially named the reception method. Outside the mirror, the family has gathered around. Mutian, Chunchu, and Tongya stare at the glowing mirror in anticipation. Qijing looks up and shouts for his father to look quickly. Mushin sees glowing characters appearing on the surface of the mirror and urgently commands Chunchu to bring cloth and ink. Chunchu quickly begins grinding the inkstick against the inkstone, preparing to write. Mutian shouts for them to copy this immortal method down immediately. He warns them to be extremely careful and not copy a single character wrong. Tongya holds up a brush and carefully begins writing down the glowing characters as they appear on the mirror. They are completely mesmerized, realizing this is a real, legendary, immortal method about the mystic bead true pill descending into the heart meridian at the start of the first revolution. They are completely mesmerized, realizing this is a real, legendary, immortal method. The moon shines down brightly through the sky, casting a pure, white light over the roof of the temple. They read aloud the chant, respectfully inviting the mystic, bright, wondrous method to control their fate, calm their spirit, and follow the Tao to cultivate. Tongya writes down the final strokes of the chant with a steady hand. Mutian holds up the finished scroll, instructing them to speak of merit at the right time, not betray trust, burn it with the seal, and thank Taiyin personally. He looks deeply satisfied, holding the precious scroll close to his chest. The next morning, the sun rises over the peaceful green mountains of Lijing village. Mutian is out walking by the fields with a hoe over his shoulder when someone calls out to him. A cheerful young man named Ye Chengfu, a member of the Ye clan, greets Mutian warmly and asks if there is any happy event today. Mutian smiles, looking at the delightful green ears of grain in the fields. Chengfu laughs, saying he's just benefiting from Mutian's eldest son's joyful energy. Mutian wishes him well and chuckles, calling him a brat who really knows how to talk. He proudly mentions that his new daughter-in-law is obedient and sensible, keeping her mouth shut and focusing her attention on Chanshu. Mutian walks away, muttering to himself that Tongya is still unwilling to take a wife, even though Shangping has reached the age. He thinks to himself that sister Tianyun, raised by Shushui, is actually quite nice and her age is highly suitable for Shangping. Suddenly, a loud sneeze echoes from behind the bushes as someone catches a cold. Tongya looks at Shangping, who is rubbing his nose, and asks if he's alright or if he caught a cold. Shangping smiles weakly, saying he's fine and they should continue. The scene shifts back to the previous night, where the family was sitting in front of the glowing mirror. The white-haired spirit looks down at them, evaluating which of the four sons is the most talented. He explains that some members of the Li family possess spiritual orifices, allowing them to step onto the path of immortality. He notes that the white radiance revealed during their first cultivation represents their compatibility with the talisman seed. Eldest son, Li Tongya, has a white radiance of 6 inches, allowing him to reach 60% of the normal cultivation speed. Third son, Li Shangping, has 5 inches of white radiance, while second son, Li Shanchu, only has 3 inches. But among the 4 sons, the youngest, Li Qijing, has the longest white radiance, a full 8 inches. The spirit looks at Qijing in astonishment, realizing this youngest boy is a rare, outstanding talent. 2 months have passed since that fateful night. Qijing opens his eyes, a brilliant golden spark reflecting in his pupils. Mutian watches him, asking if he has successfully memorized the magic technique. Qijing happily confirms that after cultivating for 2 months, he has completely memorized it, and suggests they try it today since it is the start of summer. Mutian nods with a serious look, agreeing that they shall try it today. The brothers stand behind Qijing, ready to support him as he prepares to perform the ritual. Night falls, and the full moon shines brightly over the quiet forest. Qijing sits quietly in the dark room, gathering his spiritual energy. Chanshu and Tongya stand watch, keeping the area secure. Qijing carefully picks up the bronze mirror, holding it with both hands. The moonlight shines through the window directly onto the mirror, which starts to glow. The family stands before the altar, watching as incense smoke rises slowly into the air. The 3 incense sticks burn brightly, sending thick curls of white smoke upward. Qijing bows deeply before the altar, pressing his forehead against the cold floor. He clasps his hands and recites the chant, asking the mystic, bright, wondrous method to control fate and calm the spirit, following the Tao to cultivate. He looks up with a look of pure focus, his eyes reflecting the soft light of the altar. Inside the mirror, the spirit gathers his power, sending a drop of glowing energy toward the surface. Suddenly, a massive crack of spiritual energy erupts from the mirror, sending waves of light across the entire room. Mutian's eyes light up with excitement as he shouts that there is a reaction. A brilliant, spinning vortex of blue and white light emerges from the mirror, swirling majestically in the air. The spiritual vortex expands, casting a beautiful cosmic glow over the entire family as they watch in absolute silence. The mystical light envelops Qijing, flowing directly into his chest as the ritual successfully completes. The family stands together in the glowing temple, witnessing the birth of their very first true cultivator. Back in the secret room, the swirling vortex of light slowly concentrates around the young Qijing. Chanshu and Tongya watch in complete amazement, whispering to ask what that is. Suddenly, Qijing groans in pain, clutching his head as the massive spiritual information floods his mind. The pillar of white light shoots directly from the mirror and connects with Qijing's forehead, bonding the talisman seed to his soul. Inside the mirror, the spirit of the white-haired cultivator chants about the disciples of the Li clan abstaining from their emotional nature. The blue energy crackles wildly, infusing Qijing's body with pure spiritual force. The spirit continues, telling him to stop all thoughts and cultivate as his voice echoes in Qijing's mind. The light around Qijing intensifies, creating a blinding pillar of light that shines through the secret room. Under the guidance of the mirror, Qijing begins to undergo a profound spiritual transformation. The massive surge of energy starts to stabilize, slowly settling into Qijing's dantian. The white-haired spirit continues to chant, finalizing the activation of the ancient cultivation art. Slowly, Qijing opens his eyes, a brilliant blue spark reflecting in his pupils as the light fades. His father Mutian immediately steps forward, asking Jinger how it went. Qijing looks up with a brilliant, joyful smile, clenching his fist and telling his father and brother that he successfully obtained the talisman seed and has officially stepped into the gate of cultivation. Mutian and Tongya laugh with pure delight, shouting their approval. He adds that he also obtained an extremely powerful manual called the Taiyin Breath Nurturing Wheel Sutra. He explains the contents of the manual, his face full of excitement. He holds up a finger to explain the manual, but before he can finish, he suddenly covers his mouth as if choking on his own words. He gasps and is completely unable to speak, shocking his family. Mutian steps forward in a panic, asking in a panic what happened to him. Qijing falls to his knees, clutching his throat as he tries to speak but can't produce a single sound. He points to his mouth, realizing a mysterious, powerful magic is preventing him from sharing the technique's details. Once he stops trying to speak of the method, he can breathe again. He gasps, explaining that the moment he tries to explain the immortal method, he literally cannot speak a single word. Tongya nods thoughtfully, telling him it doesn't matter and advising him to wait until the summer solstice so they can request the method together. Tongya turns back to the mirror, noting that there are only 6 of these precious talisman seeds. Chanchu asks if there are really only 6 seeds, looking a bit disappointed by the small quantity. He explains that for such a legendary, world-defying magical object, having a small quantity of seeds is actually completely normal. Chanchu laughs and says that since their youngest brother succeeded, they can finally all go get some sleep. Tongya playfully teases him, telling Chanchu that he just wants to hurry back and report his safety to his new wife. Tongya then turns to Xiangping with a smirk, asking if he should also consider the matter of getting married, and mentioning that Sister Tianyun is quite good. Xiangping's face turns completely red and flustered, and he yells to ask what kind of random matchmaking this is. The family bursts into loud, warm laughter as they walk out of the temple into the bright morning. The scene shifts to the beautiful morning sky over the peaceful village of Lijing. The path leads up to a cozy, traditional estate, the home of Tian Shushui. Li Mutian stands outside the doorway, calling out to ask if Shushui is home. Tian Yun emerges from the house, her eyes lighting up in surprise as she happily greets him, shouting for her dad because Uncle Li is here. She smiles warmly, her traditional pink dress flowing gently in the morning breeze. Mushin nods with a gentle smile, feeling very pleased. Tian Yun politely invites him inside, telling him not to stand outside the courtyard. Mutian thanks her, presenting a wild goose he brought along, while she giggles and says, Uncle Li is being too polite. He hands her the goose, which is a traditional betrothal gift in their culture. A silhouette panel explains the traditional ritual where the Book of Etiquette states that marriage rites should use a wild goose, and this rite is officially called Nakai. The narrator explains that presenting a wild goose to the woman's family signifies a formal proposal of marriage. Muchin smiles at Tianyun, asking her directly if she likes the Xiangping of his family. She gets extremely flustered, her cheeks flushing red as she stammers nervously. She whispers with a shy, sweet smile that she really likes him. Shoshui walks out of the door with a bright smile, commenting that the boy Xiangping is usually watertight, making it impossible for people to see his thoughts. Shushui walks down the steps, greeting Mutian as his big brother. The fathers laugh together, and Mutian says he wants to discuss the good matter between Tianyun and his Xiangping. He asks if Shoshui has any objections, and Shoshui laughs, saying since Yuner is willing, he of course has no objections. But Shushui's face suddenly turns serious as he adjusts his straw hat. He whispers that aside from this marriage, there is also an extremely important matter he wants to inform him about. Mutian's eyes narrow as he asks what this matter is. Shushui explains that a few days ago, when he went up the mountain and passed by the Yuan family ancestral tomb, he heard some strange movements. He looked closely but initially didn't see anything. But he is certain the Yuan family still has clansmen who haven't been killed off and are plotting something. Hearing this, Mutian's expression turns incredibly dark and murderous. The scene shifts to a dark forest, where a group of armed guards has surrounded a prisoner. The prisoner, shivering in fear, screams that it was the Yuan family who instructed him to do it. He begs on his knees, crying and saying he knows he was wrong and asking to be spared. But Mutian stands over him like an absolute executioner, slowly raising his sharp blade. With a swift, powerful movement, he lunges forward, slashing his sword. The narrator explains that these are the ones who poisoned Chen Chu and wanted to push their family to ruin. He screams as the blade connects, Mushin's face completely cold and unyielding. Back at the family compound, a knock echoes at the door, and Chanchu calls out to ask who is there. He opens the door to find his older brothers standing outside in full armor, looking ready for a major confrontation. Tongya stands in the dark bamboo forest, his expression cold and ruthless. He gives a chilling final command to leave absolutely no one alive. We open on a cold, rainy night. A blood-soaked sword slices through the dark sky as the battle begins. The Lee family guards have surrounded a group of hostile intruders in the pouring rain. Chanchu holds a flaming torch, yelling to ask who is there as he corners one of the invaders. He engages the enemy, his blade cutting a sharp arc of light through the heavy downpour. Powerful slashes and combat moves are executed as the family forces push back the intruders. Suddenly, an older man and a woman shelter under an umbrella, trembling as they ask the armored warriors what they are doing. Standing in full black armor, Chanchu looks incredibly imposing, lightning crackling behind him. The older man's eyes widen as he recognizes him, asking if he is Li Mutian, the eldest son who became a soldier, and wondering how this is possible since they thought he died in the army. Kungyev steps out from the shadows, drawing his sword in a single, cold-blooded motion. He stares down at them, whispering that since they recognized him they can die knowing the truth. With an icy smile, Tongya lunges forward, his blade flashing in the dark. A brutal strike silences the older man, ending the threat permanently. The entire enemy camp is set on fire, giant orange flames engulfing the ancestral hall of the Yuan family. From a distance, we see the burning compound lighting up the dark night sky. The crescent moon shines down peacefully on Lijing village, as if nothing happened. The Li brothers stand on a hill overlooking the outskirts of the village, watching the horizon. Chijing runs up to Tongya, informing him that the rest of the Yuan family has been dealt with. Chanchu walks up behind them, confirming they have all been eliminated. Tongya looks at the newly acquired land, mentioning it's just the remaining land left by the Yuan family. Chanchu points out that since Tongya is the legitimate eldest brother, all the land should rightfully belong to him. But Tongya holds up a hand, telling them not to speak such outsider words, explaining that the land is about 20-some acres. He decides to keep 5 acres for Shushui, while Chanchu and Shangping will each receive 4 acres. Deeply grateful, the brothers bow their heads and thank him warmly. Chanchu smiles, declaring that they are always willing to honor their big brother as the head of the house and obey his commands. Chanchu notes that when they have time, they should still check if there are any omitted clan members of the Yuan family to avoid future trouble. Tongya's eyes narrow as he silently contemplates the ruthless reality of protecting his family. He looks off into the distance, his gaze cold and calculating. He recalls asking earlier if the Yuan family had 5 members with no errors or omissions. Mutian nods, smiling as he says he reckons it was just someone with distant relations who dared to secretly offer sacrifices. Shushui clarifies the situation, agreeing that it should indeed be so. The 2 older men laugh together, and Nushin says he shouldn't have mentioned such unlucky things on a good day. Shushui walks down the mountain path, heading home in a cheerful mood. We see the gate of the newly built Li residence under the bright afternoon sun. In the front courtyard, Chanchu, Tongya, and Shangping are sitting around a stone table. Chijing runs into the courtyard holding a piece of paper, panting excitedly. Chanchu looks up, telling his younger brother to go easy on the tossing around. Chijing laughs, mentioning he's been tossing about all morning. He walks up to the table, taking a seat and catching his breath. Tongya smiles and pours him some tea, asking where their father went since they haven't seen him for a few hours. Just then, Mutian walks into the courtyard, carrying his wooden staff with a pleased look. He takes a cup of tea, sipping it calmly as he announces he went to the Tian family to propose marriage. Shangping's eyes widen in absolute shock, nearly spitting out his tea as he asks what the Tian family said. Mutian laughs heartily, pointing a finger at him and saying Tianyun admits she fancies him. Xiangping pumps his fists in pure joy, his face lighting up as he cheers that this is absolutely great. His brothers burst into loud laughter, teasing him for being so incredibly eager. Nushin smiles, setting down his cup, and calls for their attention. The family instantly turns serious, listening closely to their father. Musian notes that although the immortal path is incomparably magical, who knows what terrors and crises lurk within. He states that this mirror is both their family's greatest opportunity and potential disaster. He explains that he rushed to arrange a marriage for Chanchu hoping to produce heirs quickly, just in case something happens to the main branch. He looks at Shangping, telling him he must do the same. Mutian turns to Tongya, sighing that since he is old he can't persuade him anymore, but even if Tongya has no interest in village women he still must leave some heirs. Tongya looks down, promising calmly that he has a sense of propriety. Mutian nods slowly, stroking his chin. Suddenly, Chijing calls out from the doorway to get his father's attention. Mutian looks up, asking what it is. Chijing runs into the room, excitedly stating that he grasped some tricks to condense moonlight while cultivating. He explains that in a few days, he will be able to follow the guidance of the manual, refine 81 strands of moonlight, and condense the Xuanjing wheel. Tongya looks completely amazed, asking about this Xuanjing wheel. A diagram shows the stages of qi condensation, explaining that the Xuanjing wheel is the gate to entering the Tao. Qijing explains that only by condensing the Xuanjing wheel can one truly be considered to have stepped onto the path of cultivation. Mushin is absolutely delighted, laughing loudly and shouting that his Qijing is amazing. Qijing smiles, promising that later when his older brothers get the manual he will share these tricks with them. Chanchu smiles warmly, telling him to wait a few more days until the summer solstice so they can request the talisman seeds together. The scene shifts to Tongya carefully carving characters onto a wooden scroll in the secret room. He writes with a steady hand, focusing all his energy into the ancient characters. The text glows with golden light, declaring that the path of cultivation is here, and Li Tongya has arrived. Summer solstice has finally arrived, and the golden wheat fields of Lijing village are fully ripe, ready for harvest. The dry stalks sway in the wind, looking completely golden under the sun. A closer look reveals the thick grains representing a great harvest for the villagers. Night falls, and the bright crescent moon rises over the temple roof once again. Raindrops fall gently, pattering against the large green leaves in the courtyard. Inside the secret room, the brothers and their father gather around the table, sitting cross-legged on the floor. On the altar, fresh offerings of food and fruit are placed beside the burning incense burner and the glowing bronze mirror. The brothers clasp their hands, chanting about the Li family disciples. They chant their names in unison, their voices echoing in the quiet chamber. They chant to respectfully invite the mystic, bright, profound method to govern fate and pursue the Tao. Inside the mirror, the white-haired cultivator hears their prayer and begins to guide the ritual, commanding the talisman seeds to emerge. 3 brilliant pillars of glowing white light shoot up from the mirror, filling the dark room with celestial energy. The glowing white streams of light hover in the air, each containing a talisman seed. The streams of energy descend from the ceiling, heading directly toward the 3 brothers. Qijing stands in the background, watching with a mixture of excitement and concern as the light bonds with his brothers' foreheads. The chant echoes that by relying entirely on the Dharma mirror, 81 strands of moonlight have been refined. Chanshu sits cross-legged, his hands formed in a classic cultivation seal, completely focused. Mystical glowing waves of water and energy swirl around him as he visualizes the Xuanjing wheel forming in his dantian. The energy flows through his meridians, described as a rising state where vitality curls upwards, ascending the 12 rings of the tower. A stream of white light shoots directly from his head, connecting him to the heavenly elements. Chanshu stands on a cliff overlooking a swirling, misty sea in his consciousness, looking out toward the crescent moon. Suddenly, the imagery of the sea begins to tremble and fracture, and Chanshu gasps in horror, wondering if it is going to dissipate. He breaks out into a cold sweat, looking terrified as the spiritual connection starts to weaken. He quickly readjusts his hand seals, struggling to maintain the flow of moonlight energy. He unleashes a final burst of willpower, pushing his energy to its absolute limit to force the integration. Chanshu gasps for breath as waves of glowing blue energy swirl around his head. He sits cross-legged in the quiet courtyard, the blue aura slowly stabilizing around his body. Sweat pours down his face as he strains, gritting his teeth to finalize the path of cultivation. A violent explosion of spiritual energy erupts from his body, creating a bright vortex of light. The light shoots off into the sky, leaving a brilliant trail of stars in its wake. Chanshu slowly releases his breath as the blinding light finally begins to settle. The swirling blue patterns dissolve into a calm, gentle mist. He opens his eyes and exhales a long, relieved breath as the tension leaves his body. His face displays a mixture of exhaustion and pride as he realizes the Xuanjing wheel has successfully formed. He murmurs his thanks, declaring that for bestowing the immortal method and refining the moonlight, the Li family is endlessly grateful for this grace. On the altar, the mirror glows softly as Mutian stands watch over his sleeping son. Chanshu stands up, wiping the sweat from his brow, and reports to his father that he has already condensed the Xuanjing wheel. He holds out his hand, creating a brilliant, glowing ball of golden spiritual energy. Mutian smiles proudly, giving him a big thumbs up and praising his success. Later that night, incense smoke rises from the altar as the brothers rest in the courtyard. 3 incense sticks burn quietly in the burner, sending thin curls of smoke into the dark sky. Chanshu and his brothers raise their cups, cheering and laughing in celebration. Mutian pours some hot tea into a cup, joining in on the celebration. He takes a sip, smiling as Chanshu announces that his reception was successful. Chanshu excitedly lists his achievements, explaining he obtained a nurturing wheel sutra and a technique formula called the water avoidance method. Shangping also chimes in, holding up his cup with a grin, stating he obtained a formula called the evil warding technique. Mutian looks over at the closed door of the secret room, noting that now only Chanshu is left inside. Inside the mirror, the spirit of the cultivator sighs, noting that with Chanshu's 3 inches of white radiance, this reception is truly too strenuous for him. He adds that even if Chanshu cultivates day and night without sleep, he still cannot compare to others cultivating for just 4 hours a day. Outside, Chanchu finally walks out, looking completely exhausted. He weakly announces that he has also successfully completed the reception and obtained a cleaning technique. Tongya looks at him with concern, noting he looks like he's about to collapse. Qijing laughs, slapping Chanchu's shoulder and telling him that success in reception is a great thing, and now all four brothers can finally cultivate together. Qijing stands in the center, smiling warmly as he congratulates his older brothers and explains that next, they must begin tempering the moonlight according to the formulas. Qijing explains that after refining 81 strands of moonlight, one can form the first wheel of the 6 wheels of fetal breath, the Xuanjing wheel. Chanchu rubs his neck, sighing that it sounds incredibly complex and difficult. Tongya turns to Qijing, asking how long it usually takes him to refine one strand of moonlight qi. Qijing holds up 3 fingers with a bright smile, explaining that when he first started, it took him 2 hours to absorb the moonlight just 3 times. Chanchu does the math, his jaw dropping in horror as he calculates that 81 times would take over 50 hours. He rubs his chin, complaining that this speed of absorbing moonlight is inevitably way too slow. Tongya recalls Qijing saying earlier that he would be able to refine 81 strands of moonlight within a few days. Qijing smiles, holding up his hand as a glowing sphere of energy appears, explaining that while his brothers were busy receiving the talisman seeds, he was already making his move. He reveals that he had already successfully condensed the Xuanjing wheel. The brothers look completely flabbergasted, shouting in unison to ask how he did it so fast. Qijing explains he discovered a trick during his cultivation, noting that using the mirror to temper the moonlight yields twice the result with half the effort. Chanchu's eyes light up as the true value of the mirror clicks for him. Tongya looks at the mirror on the table, noting that this Dharma mirror truly has endless, incredible uses. Qijing smiles, mentioning that besides the Nurturing Wheel Sutra, they all obtained different companion formulas. He explains that although the Nurturing Wheel Sutra cannot be spoken or written, these companion formulas can be easily transmitted and recorded. Qijing hands Tongya a wooden scroll, explaining he has already written down the formula for the Golden Light technique so they can study it together. Chanchu smiles, praising his younger brother for being so incredibly thoughtful. Tongya pats Qijing's shoulder, mentioning that books say the human body has spiritual orifices, and when magic power flows through the body, their location is revealed. We get a close-up of Qijing's bright, intelligent eyes as he listens to his brother. Chanchu, Tongya, and Qijing stand together, ready to test their spiritual orifices. Qijing smiles and nods, agreeing to start. He reaches out his hand, channeling his golden spiritual energy toward Tongya's chest. A brilliant, crackling beam of energy erupts from Qijing's hand, entering Tongya's body. Tongya stands firm, his body glowing with a bright golden aura as the spiritual orifices are successfully activated. The 3 incense sticks on the altar continue to burn quietly, sending thin curls of white smoke into the air. Sometime later, the incense sticks burn down completely, leaving only ashes in the pot. Qijing looks at his brothers in absolute disbelief, his eyes wide as he mutters that there is absolutely nothing. He shakes his head in shock, shouting and wondering how there can be absolutely none. The brothers look completely devastated as Qijing delivers the harsh truth that none of them have spiritual orifices, and even he does not have them. He sinks to the floor, clenching his fists in frustration and repeating that even he is missing them. Inside the mirror, the spirit looks deeply sorrowful, explaining that the manual clearly states spiritual orifices are the absolute foundation of the great Tao. Without them, mortals can never hope to tread the path of immortality. But then, a realization hits him, noting that this Dharma mirror can actually turn the rotten into something miraculous, allowing even mere mortals to glimpse the immortal Tao. In the secret room, Tongya looks at the mirror with a mixture of awe and fear, whispering that their father was absolutely right. He concludes that this Dharma mirror is indeed the calamity that will bring complete extermination to their family, realizing just how dangerous this world-defying treasure truly is. Back in the family courtyard, the brothers and their father stand around the stone table, discussing the divine properties of the mirror. Mushin explains that Han Wengshu once told him that only 1 in 1,000 possess spiritual orifices, and they are incredibly lucky to have even one in the family. He sips his tea, staring at the glowing mirror and noting that it can turn the rotten into the miraculous. He warns them that if their souls are ever detained by others, their entire village could be reduced to ashes. He asks Qijing if he can use his magical power to detect the location of their spiritual orifices. Mutian adds that from now on, any children of the Li family who receive talisman seeds must absolutely not swagger through the streets. The brothers nod in agreement, promising to remain extremely cautious. Mushin tells them to go back and rest, saying he will deal with the remaining matters. The mirror glows on its wooden stand, casting a calm, protective light over the quiet room. Mushin stands outside under the crescent moon, staring up at the starry sky with a look of determination. 3 months have passed since that fateful night. Chanchu sits cross-legged in his room, looking deeply frustrated and sweating profusely. He sighs, muttering that it is simply too difficult. He explains that it has been more than 3 months since he received the talisman seed, but his progress is painfully slow. Chanchu sits alone in his room, his head bowed in disappointment. He notes that Tanya has already condensed over 70 strands of moonlight, and Xiangping has even attempted to condense the Xuanjing wheel. Chanchu laments that he is the only one still stuck with single digits of condensed moonlight, feeling completely left behind by his brothers. He looks at the bronze mirror resting on his table, wishing he could utilize its power more effectively. He sighs, noting that even though their father lets them take turns using the mirror, his talent is simply too poor. He looks at his reflection in the mirror, asking himself if he's even fit to be his brother's brother. He clenches his fist, realizing he must find another way to contribute to the family. He walks out into the courtyard, finding his father Mutian polishing a sharp sword. He approaches his father respectfully, calling out to him. Mutian looks up, asking what's wrong, and Chanchu confesses that he fears he is simply not cut out for cultivating immortality. Mutian's eyes narrow as he asks if he is planning to just give up on cultivating. Chanchu quickly replies that it's not that he won't cultivate. He explains that since he has poor talent, he might as well manage the family business and fields during the day to keep others from getting suspicious. Chanchu adds with a self-deprecating smile that he can barely manage to cultivate by using the Dharma mirror at night. Mutian closes his eyes and agrees, telling him to forget about tomorrow and go prepare for Xiangping's wedding. He hands Chanchu a weapon, telling him to make sure everything is ready for the big day. He advises him to keep the wedding low-key and invite only close relatives to avoid drawing too much attention. Inside the house, Chanchu's wife, sister-in-law Ren Pinger, is sitting with another woman. Pinger is busy sewing some clothes, looking very content. Chanchu walks into the hallway, calling out to apologize for keeping her waiting. She turns to him with a warm, happy smile, noting that eldest brother has finished cultivating. She tells him she will let Aunt Lu know, while another woman whispers softly. Pinger stands up, looking a bit hesitant as she holds her sewing basket, calling out to Chanchu. Chanchu walks over, looking at her gently and asking what is on her mind. She blushes slightly and smiles, whispering that she is pregnant. Chanchu's eyes widen in absolute disbelief, shouting in absolute defiance. He grabs her shoulder, staring at her and asking if it is really true, while she smiles back and asks if she would ever lie to him. Pinger giggles, mentioning that mother-in-law has already checked and confirmed it. Chanchu immediately turns around and yells for his father, shouting that Pinger is pregnant. Mutian, who was busy outside, drops his wooden staff in surprise. The staff clatters loudly against the stone floor. Mutian runs into the room, gasping to ask what he just said. Chanchu points to his wife, repeating with a massive grin that Pinger is pregnant. Mutian bursts into a wide, joyous smile, raising his hands and cheering. He pats Chanchu's shoulder, telling him to take good care of her while he goes to invite the local teacher. Chanchu and Pinger share a sweet, loving look, incredibly happy about the news. The couple stands together in the hallway, looking out at the beautiful courtyard. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the young Qijing walking through the hallway of the compound under the night sky. He holds a wooden scroll labeled Golden Light Technique. He begins to explain that this Golden Light Technique is an art of attack and killing designed to protect the Tao. He demonstrates the technique, pointing out that by pinching a seal and casting the spell, one can condense an exceptionally sharp ray of golden light. He shoots a powerful beam of golden energy from his fingertips, slicing through the air with a sharp crack. The beam strikes a large rock in the courtyard, splitting it cleanly in half as smoke rises. He explains the benefits of the technique, noting that stepping into fetal breath increases one's lifespan to 120 years. Mutian and Tanya watch the demonstration from the side, praising it as an incredible magic technique. Tanya notes that among the formulas they obtained, this golden light technique is definitely the most useful. He recalls that a few days ago, Qijing cast a spell and slashed the fake mountain in the backyard. Qijing smiles, noting that when it comes to cultivation, his brothers are truly not inferior to him. Later that night, Qijing and Tongya are sitting at a table drinking tea. Tongya notes that drawing qi to refine essence takes 9 months to reach Xuanjing and 3 months to reach Chengming. He points out that they relied on external objects to cultivate, so their speed shouldn't count compared to normal geniuses. Indeed, Qijing agrees, taking a sip of his tea. But he notes that their eldest brother, Chanchu, is probably even worse off than them due to his poor talent. Qijing smiles, saying Chanchu is probably struggling a lot more. Tongya nods, agreeing that they must find a way to help him. Suddenly, Qijing's eyes narrow as he senses something outside the window. We get a close-up of his sharp, focused gaze as he stares into the dark courtyard. Outside, a dark silhouette is seen lurking near the bamboo bushes. Qijing's face turns furious as he leaps out of the window, shouting that these thieves have some nerve. We open on a busy street market in the town under the bright morning sun, merchants calling out to buyers. A street vendor is grilling delicious meat skewers over hot coals, waving a customer over. He hands over several hot, sizzling skewers of meat, grease dripping down. The customer takes a massive bite, enjoying the tasty street food. He realizes he is spending his money way too fast, but decides it doesn't matter since he's having a great time. Suddenly, a boy runs up to him shouting for his brother. The boy is completely out of breath, warning him that someone came to their land claiming they already discussed buying it. The older brother, still chewing on his skewer, calmly asks what the big deal is. The boy's eyes fill with tears as he cries, explaining that after their dad passed away last year, he only left them 2 plots of land, and wondering how they are supposed to live now that he sold them. The older brother's face turns dark and hostile as he yells to ask what the kid even knows about it. He grabs the boy roughly by his collar, shouting to ask if he has any right to dictate his actions. He pushes him away as the surrounding crowd looks on with disapproval, whispering among themselves. Some onlookers mutter that this is completely shameful, showing no respect for his younger sibling. The brother yells back at the crowd, telling them to mind their own business since it's a family matter. He glares at them, his eyes full of anger. Meanwhile, back at the village, the Lee brothers are discussing the gossip. They laugh, noting that some villagers believe they just got incredibly lucky with their reincarnation. One of the brothers grumbles, noting they are just a wealthy family in the village and asking what kind of airs they are putting on by building a grand compound. Chanchu listens silently, keeping his head bowed. He looks up with a sharp, cold expression, letting out a sharp grunt. In another part of the forest, a man named Li Yesheng is sitting on a tree branch, grumbling that he hasn't seen that bastard Li Tongya in months. He adds that their third and fourth brothers also seem to have disappeared for quite some time. Yesheng smiles wickedly, whispering to himself that Li Mutian must have hidden some incredible treasures in that grand compound. He decides he will slip into the compound tonight to check it out for himself. Night falls, and Yesheng is shown sneaking along the tall walls of the Li family compound under the moonlight. He feels the wall, whispering that he circled all the way around but couldn't find a single crack. This wall is built so flat and smooth, he fears it will be hard to climb over, leaving him annoyed. He scales the wall cautiously, peering over the top into the quiet courtyard. Guarded so tightly, he smiles, knowing there is definitely something fishy going on in this grand courtyard. He realizes he can just go up the back mountain to get a better view from above. Inside the room, Tongya is reading a scroll when Chanchu walks in. Chanchu asks what he is busy with, and Tongya smiles and looks up. Chanchu sits down, asking if he has started preparing to condense the Xuanjing wheel. Tongya answers that it will be soon, and in a few days he can condense 81 wisps of moonlight. But they are far inferior to Qijing, he adds, looking at the scroll and expressing that he always feels like he should wait a bit longer. Chanchu smiles, telling him that's fine too. He asks his eldest brother who among the 4 of us do you think resembles father the most. Tongya answers immediately, stating that it is naturally him. Chanchu smiles, but then his face turns a bit solemn, noting that he is too lenient, Shangping is too restless, and Qijing is too shy. Chanchu laughs, noting that only Li Tongya remains calm and composed, showing absolutely no emotion just like their dad. Tongya smiles, telling his brother to stop flattering him and asking why he thinks so. He recalls when they were playing in the courtyard as children, and their father once said something very important. Mushin explained that when killing a man for the first time, one might experience ringing ears and a hot head, losing all sense of direction. Tongya recalls with a smirk how their father bragged about being the only one who, after killing for the first time, calmly sheathed his blade and drank wine as if nothing had happened. He states that Shangping actually resembles father the most because, Tongya says with a dark, chilling look in his eyes that it is because he is cruel enough. Back on the back mountain, Yesheng is sitting behind a tree watching them closely. He whispers that only from here can he see into that grand courtyard. From his vantage point, he can see the brothers sitting in the room, but he complains that the distance is a bit too far and he can't hear what they are actually saying. Suddenly, Qijing's room lights up with a brilliant flash, startling Yesheng so bad he wonders if his own eyes are playing tricks on him. He rubs his eyes in total confusion, trying to figure out what that weird beam of light was. He scowls, muttering that the whole situation is getting extremely bizarre. He recalls the rumors about those massive stone locks in the courtyard, wondering if Li Mutian secretly scored some high-tier martial arts manual. He chomps on a pear, grumbling that as a member of the Li clan he should have gotten his fair share of the secrets too. Yesheng camps out on the tree branch, munching on his snack while plotting to sneak in, steal the manual, and flip it for quick cash. He takes another smug bite of his juicy pear, feeling incredibly proud of his half-baked plan. Suddenly he blinks, looking down at the courtyard in surprise and wondering why everyone has suddenly vanished. The courtyard is completely empty and silent under the moonlight, looking incredibly eerie. Disappointed that his spying session is over, Yesheng climbs down the tree, deciding to come back another day. But as he turns around, a massive, dark silhouette suddenly emerges from the shadows directly behind him. Yesheng screams in absolute terror, scrambling backward as he clutches the tree trunk and cries out to God. The dark figure stands before him, face hidden in shadow with eyes glowing a cold, murderous red, telling Yesheng that he scared the hell out of him. The figure raises his hand, which immediately gets engulfed in a bright, swirling vortex of pure energy. With a brutal, swift strike, the figure slashes Yesheng, sending blood splattering everywhere. Yesheng's eyes widen in sheer horror as he groans, coughing up blood and wondering what is happening. He falls to the forest floor, his body collapsing into the wet grass as blood pools around him. Yesheng's lifeless body lies in the dark forest, completely silent. The dark figure stands over the corpse, the golden energy slowly dissipating from his hand. We see Qijing standing in the dark, his face completely cold, emotionless, and covered in blood splatters. Qijing wipes the blood from his cheek, looking completely unaffected by the brutal act he just committed. He quietly turns and walks back into the dark bamboo forest, leaving the body behind. A final, chilling shot of the dark forest appears, with some chilling text written on the screen as a final warning to anyone who dares cross the Li family. Deep in the dark, silent forest, a shadowy figure is shown walking through the trees. The figure moves stealthily, blending into the surrounding darkness. It's Li Mutian, keeping a watchful eye on his backyard to ensure no other thieves are lurking around. A closer look shows him moving carefully through the brush, alert for any signs of trouble. He cuts through the tall grass, searching for any hidden intruders. He swings his blade again, clearing the wet reeds, when suddenly a pair of glowing eyes appears in the shadows. Mutian freezes, staring directly at the creepy eyes lurking right in front of him. He watches as a figure suddenly bolts out from the tall weeds. But as the moonlight illuminates the face, Mutian gasps, realizing it's his own son, Qijing. He quickly lowers his weapon, gesturing to keep quiet. Tongya suddenly jumps down from the wall, landing with a quiet splash of spiritual energy. He runs over to check on them, ensuring everything is secure. Later, they gather inside the hallway to discuss what just happened. Tongya explains that Shangping also participated in the defense, and tells his father he doesn't need to be so angry. Mutian scoffs, asking why on earth he would be angry about his sons defending their home. He smiles proudly, saying it was a good kill, and they did exactly what was necessary to protect their secret. Tongya sighs, noting that since his younger brothers did such a small thing for him, he can finally be at ease about the family's future. But Mutian snaps back, calling complete bullshit on that. He slams his hand against the wooden pillar, creating a loud thud. He shouts that the only reason the villagers respect them is because they gather around him, Li Mutian, and because Chanchu's rent is low. He warns them that these people have always feared power but have no gratitude, pointing out that even Yesheng dared to sneak into their house. Mutian asks sternly if Chanchu would have the guts to kill anyone who threatens them if he were to die today. Chanchu bows his head, unable to argue as his father walks away. Mutian sighs, saying to let it go for now since it's almost the big day for Shangping and Tianyun. He promises to have a serious talk with Chanchu after the wedding. The next morning, the warm sun shines over a beautiful, flowing river in Lijing village. Several young villagers are wading through the cool river, splashing water as they fish. A boy proudly holds up a massive fish he just caught, shouting for his brother to look at him. His older brother smiles, calling out to him to slow down and be careful not to fall. Meanwhile, Qijing stands on the riverbank, staring out at the flowing water with a quiet, thoughtful expression. He thinks about Yesheng, noting that even though since eldest uncle and aunt passed away, Yesheng's temperament drastically changed, his crimes still did not warrant death. Qijing whispers to himself that his cousin's crimes still did not warrant death, feeling a slight pang of guilt. Suddenly, a voice interrupts his thoughts, calling out his name. He turns around to see Chanchu walking up the path. Qijing greets an older villager, Uncle Shu, who is passing by the river with a basket. Chanchu approaches respectfully, greeting Uncle Shu. He asks if Uncle Shu's family has enough grain to eat. The old man nods gratefully, saying they have enough, but explaining that since his eldest son fell ill, he is the only one left to work the fields. Uncle Shu wipes a tear from his eye, saying if it weren't for Chanchu reducing his rent and sending grain, his family would never have survived. Chanchu holds his hands gently, telling him please, don't be so polite. He mentions his father reminded him a few days ago to take extra care of Uncle Shu's fields, and Uncle Shu tearfully asks him to thank Patriarch Mushin for them. Chanchu smiles warmly, telling him they are all family. He waves as Uncle Shu walks away, telling him not to call it a favor since it is simply what he should do. Chanchu tells his brother he needs to go to Uncle Tian's house to discuss some matters and will visit Uncle Shu's home again soon. He walks off along the riverbank, surrounded by tall, swaying reeds. Meanwhile, the young duck herder, Ye Sheng, is walking through the tall grass, looking very hungry and dejected. Ye Sheng mutters to himself that 3 days ago his fourth uncle kicked him out, and today he can only boil some wild vegetables and catch some shrimp to make soup. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out to him, greeting him by name. He turns around in surprise to see Xiangping walking toward him with a large sack over his shoulder. Xiangping smiles and waves, telling him to come on over. He reaches into his sack and pulls out a fresh flatbread, asking the hungry kid if he wants some. Ye Sheng's eyes light up, and he immediately takes a huge greedy bite, saying his brother is the absolute best to him. Xiangping pats his shoulder, telling him to take all of these. He explains that inside the sack are reading materials from his teacher, suggesting Ye Sheng read them while herding ducks. Ye Sheng is deeply moved, looking up with tearful eyes and thanking him. Xiangping smiles, promising that in a few days he will ask his father to talk to the teacher so Ye Sheng can read more. But Ye Sheng looks down, whispering that he heard studying requires tuition and his brother won't give him the money. Xiangping pats his head, telling him there is no need for that between them, promising that if he goes to beg his father he will make sure his tuition gets covered. Ye Sheng is completely stunned, staring at him in silence. Xiangping smiles, noting that he is indeed like an older brother to him. He reminds Ye Sheng to leave home early in a few days and come over to have some good meals at his wedding. The scene shifts to the beautifully decorated gate of the Li family compound, hung with bright red silk for the wedding. Inside, a large red double happiness character is hung on the wooden window. The sun shines brightly on the tiled roof on this festive day. The warm light reflects off the clean tiles. Guests arrive at the grand entrance, congratulating the family. Inside the room, the bride is sitting in front of the window, dressed in a traditional red wedding gown. The master of ceremonies pours wine into cups, leading the traditional wedding rituals. Outside, servants are busy cooking in a massive wok over a roaring fire, preparing the wedding feast. Meanwhile, Mutian and Chanchu stand inside the quiet ancestral hall, bowing before the ancestral tablets. Chanchu tells his father that they should head over to the banquet now. Mutian lights 3 incense sticks and places them in the burner, his face solemn. Mutian sighs, staring at the rising smoke and explaining that although he should not say this on Chanchu's big day, his heart has been full of anxiety lately, and he fears a disaster is imminent. We start with a beautiful wide shot of the estate at night. Lanterns cast a warm, dim glow over the courtyard as the wedding festivities wrap up. Time really does fly. In what feels like a blink of an eye, the third son of the Li family has already tied the knot and gotten married. Meanwhile, our silver-haired protagonist is reflecting on his progress. Over the past few months, he has completely absorbed the Jade's power, allowing him to use minor illusion techniques from the Moonlight Chronicle to communicate with the family. He stands peacefully in his white robes, radiating an otherworldly and mysterious aura. Even while just contemplating his next moves, he looks incredibly elegant. He looks down thoughtfully, wondering if he should reach out and offer his congratulations to Li Xiangping. But on second thought, he closes his eyes and decides against it. He realizes the timing isn't right yet, and it is better to remain hidden. He notes that powerful ethereal auras occasionally sweep across Guli Road, making him feel constantly watched. If he wants to survive in this dangerous world, he'll need to be way more cautious. At the very least, he needs to keep a low profile. He can't afford to make any careless moves right now. He clenches his fist as bright blue lightning begins to crackle around his hand, testing his current power level. He is currently at the second level of fetal breath, with his Chenjing wheel acting as his foundation. His absolute limit right now is the 4th level of the Qingyuan wheel. Fortunately, his divine sense is incredibly vast. It easily covers the entire Li household, letting him sleep all day and wake up just to watch their family drama like a reality TV show. The scene shifts to a dark, narrow ravine path at night. A group of exhausted travelers is slowly making their way through the rugged terrain. They carry whatever meager belongings they have left, moving quietly through the dark woods to avoid unwanted attention. Back at the village, one of the guards looks out from the gate in utter surprise. He spots the crowd and questions if they are actually refugees. He points out that the weather has been great these past few years, and the Maichi River has provided plenty of resources. There is no logical reason for anyone to be struggling to survive in the upper or lower reaches. A villager rushes up to report that these people claim to be from Guli Road and have been gathering at the gate. The head of the Lu family has already gone to check it out, and he came to inform the young master. The young master decides not to disturb his sleeping father. He moves out to handle the situation himself. The guards acknowledge his order and prepare to accompany him to the village gates. Under the starry night sky, a crowd has gathered near the bridge leading into the village, their torches flickering in the darkness. A large crowd of refugees is waiting anxiously at the bridge as the village representatives arrive with torches to assess the situation. Among the crowd is Ren Ping'an's father holding a bright torch and looking incredibly tense as they wait for an answer. The elder of the Lu family, Lu Linfeng, welcomes the young master as he arrives at the scene. Lu Linfeng takes a slow puff from his pipe, keeping a calm but serious expression as the crowd waits. The young master asks his uncle what the current situation is with all these people. The uncle explains that the refugees are all shouting over each other, making it impossible to get a straight story. He calls out to the crowd, trying to restore order. The crowd goes quiet, looking at each other before an older, bearded man steps forward to speak for everyone. The young master listens intently, hoping they can quickly find a peaceful solution to this sudden crisis. He reassures the refugees that once they explain their situation, the village will do what it can to help them. The refugees look relieved but still highly anxious, their faces showing the heavy toll of their long journey. Among them is a quiet young man with dark hair covering his eyes and a visible scar on his face. This guy definitely looks like he's hiding something. The elderly representative steps forward and explains that he was once the head of a merchant caravan traveling on Xiali Road. He shows a deep scar on his arm, explaining that the southern state of Wu captured Jingxia City, sparking a brutal war that forced them to flee. They were robbed along the way and barely escaped with their lives. Since he had some leadership experience, the refugees chose him to speak on their behalf. Another refugee bows respectfully, reinforcing their plea for shelter and safety in the village. Lu Linfeng is skeptical. He points out that the Guli Road section has been abandoned for years and is teeming with dangerous wild beasts, questioning how they managed to pass through unharmed. The leader's expression turns incredibly grim as he answers, saying that many of them didn't make it. He reveals the heartbreaking truth that almost all the elderly and children in their group perished along the way. He looks down at a beautifully woven grass toy in his hand, a painful reminder of what they've lost. He whispers that once they settle down, he wants to give this grass toy to his unborn grandchild. Suddenly, something catches Lu Linfeng's eye, and his face tenses up in sheer shock. He peers into the crowd of refugees, his gaze locking onto the silent, dark-haired youth standing at the back. The young man glares back, his eyes sharp and completely out of place for a simple refugee. Lu Linfeng narrows his eyes, thinking to himself that those intense eyes look incredibly familiar, but he can't quite place them. Breaking the tension, the young master steps up to address the entire gathering, raising his voice to be heard. He announces that as the representative of the village, they have plenty of fallow land available for cultivation. He offers a generous deal, explaining his family will provide tools and seeds for this year, and the refugees can rent the land for just 30% of their harvest. He promises that the prominent Li family in the village will match this offer to help them get back on their feet. While the other refugees murmur in relief, the dark-haired young man remains completely silent, staring forward with a cold, analytical expression. His face is completely emotionless, but his eyes tell a very different story. This guy is definitely planning something. The old leader tries to push his way through the crowd to find someone. He looks around in confusion, wondering where the young man suddenly vanished to. He scans the area, but the mysterious youth has completely disappeared into thin air. A quiet rustle from the shadows suggests he's already slipped away unnoticed. Even the young master noticed him, wondering how someone with such sharp, dangerous eyes could be among ordinary refugees. One of the guards whispers that they've traveled together for 3 months, yet he's never seen that young man before. The guard warns that while they can eat and marry, they must not cause trouble or engage in theft or adultery in the village. Hearing this, the elderly leader immediately drops to his knees to show his absolute loyalty and gratitude. He bows low, desperate to show that they are peaceful people who only want a safe place to live. With tears in his eyes, he explains that his entire family was wiped out in the war, and he wouldn't dream of doing anything to jeopardize this second chance. The other refugees join in, soft weeping filling the quiet night as they remember their lost loved ones. Lu Linfeng sighs, the tension in his face softening as he watches the tragic display. The young master gently tells them there is no need to kneel and helps the elderly leader back to his feet. As the leader rises, his sleeve pulls back slightly, revealing a distinctive pattern of 3 moles on his wrist. Lu Linfeng's eyes widen as he spots the moles. He thinks to himself that this mark looks incredibly familiar and he has definitely seen it somewhere before. His mind suddenly flashes back to a cold night many years ago, remembering a woman running through the hills carrying a small baby. He recalls the desperate look on her face as she tried to protect her child from whatever was pursuing them. On the sole of that baby's foot was the exact same distinctive pattern of 3 moles. He remembers someone declaring back then that a child with such unique moles was destined for greatness. He spins around frantically, but the old refugee leader is already walking away with the rest of the group. Before he can utter a single word of warning, a dark, menacing silhouette appears directly behind the unsuspecting young master. The mysterious young man is back, his face twisted into a sadistic, demonic grin as his eyes glow a blood-red color. With lightning-fast speed, he draws a razor-sharp dagger from his sleeve, the blade gleaming menacingly in the dark. The young master freezes, his eyes wide with horror as he realizes he has a cold blade pressed against his neck. In one swift, merciless motion, the youth slashes the blade across his throat, letting out a shower of blood. The young master clutches his neck as blood gushes out, his body instantly losing strength as he begins to collapse. He gasps desperately for air, but it's too late. The wound is fatal and his life is rapidly draining away. He drops to his knees on the cold stone floor, utterly helpless as blood pools around him. His vision begins to blur, a single tear mixing with the blood on his cheek as he looks up one last time. The young master falls completely lifeless onto the ground, leaving a gruesome scene behind. Lu Linfeng lets out a devastated cry of absolute despair, his face contorted in pure heartbreak and shock. He screams at the top of his lungs, calling the cold-blooded killer an absolute beast as the chapter ends on a tragic cliffhanger. Picking up immediately from the horrific tragedy, the refugees erupt into chaos. Their voices clash in panic as the horrific crime unfolds right before them. One of the village guards screams in raw fury, shouting at the killer for committing such a heartless act of brutality. The assassin doesn't waste a single moment. He uses the sheer chaos to swiftly leap back and vanish into the pitch-black night. The guards try to track his movements, but the dense shadows swallow him completely. Outraged villagers curse at the fleeing killer, their anger boiling over at the senseless murder. They point their torches into the dark, screaming insults and demanding the killer face justice. The elderly leader of the refugees is completely paralyzed with fear. He raises his hands in panic, desperately yelling that he has absolutely nothing to do with this and didn't even know the killer. But the furious village uncle snaps at him to shut up. He holds the bleeding, dying young master in his arms, crying out that Changhu has just been murdered right in front of them for absolutely no reason. Changhu looks up weakly, his eyes dimming as the final embers of his life begin to fade away on the cold ground. The uncle's heart completely shatters. He panics, wondering how he will ever explain this devastating tragedy to his sister, and how he can possibly face Li Mutian. He tightly cradles his nephew's body, completely lost in grief as the reality of the situation settles in. Another elder looks on with a grim, heavy heart, realizing this tragedy is going to trigger a massive storm within the village. He picks up the woven grass toy that was dropped during the chaos, mourning the cursed and cruel hand of fate that took this young life away. The old refugee leader holds the toy close to his chest, utterly broken and knowing that their hopes for a peaceful refuge are completely ruined. In a sudden surge of grief-fueled rage, he crushes the grass toy in his fist, vowing to hunt down and destroy the beast who committed this horrible deed himself. The uncle continues to weep as he prepares to carry Changhu's lifeless body back to the village. He can't help but remember the happy, smiling faces of Changhu and his wife, making the tragedy feel 1,000 times more painful. A faint, glowing blue aura begins to shimmer around Changhu's body, as if his departing soul is lingering for a final goodbye. His hand falls limp, his final, faint words of apology slipping away into the cold night breeze. His strength completely gone, he passes away, leaving only a tragic silence. The hand dangles lifelessly, confirming that the young master is truly gone. The uncle lets out a heartbreaking scream, his voice echoing through the dark forest in absolute agony. Suddenly, the shimmering blue particles of light gather and stream upward into the night sky, flowing like a celestial river. This mystical trail of glowing light flies over the village roofs, heading directly toward the protagonist's courtyard. The glowing soul particles funnel directly into the sacred starlight mirror, which begins to pulse with intense magical energy. The silver-haired protagonist watches the energy gather, letting out a soft, heavy sigh as he senses what has just transpired. He raises his hand, gently receiving the lingering spiritual remnants of the deceased young man. He realizes that the place where Changhu was attacked is simply too far away for him to have saved him, but through the talisman's connection he is able to experience the dying young man's final moments. He holds the glowing butterfly close, analyzing the residual memories and emotions etched into the soul particles. He closes his eyes, focusing his mind to read the visual memories carried by the spiritual messenger. He tells himself to focus, casting a powerful magical barrier around himself as he prepares to dive deeper into the vision. Beautiful, glowing phantom butterflies flutter through the darkness, carrying the fragments of the memory. Meanwhile, the village patriarch Li Mutian is sleeping peacefully in his bed, unaware that the tragedy is about to be revealed to him in a dream. Suddenly, his eye snaps wide open as the intense spiritual message breaks through his sleep. Within his dreamscape, a glowing divine apparition of our protagonist appears before him, casting a brilliant and holy light. Li Mutian bolts upright in bed, covered in cold sweat and gasping for air as the dream abruptly ends. The dream vision lingers for a moment, showing the spectral image of Changhu surrounded by a warm, protective green light. In the physical world, the patriarch clutches his chest, coughing heavily as his old wounds flare up from the sudden shock. His heart is filled with absolute dread as he mutters, desperately wishing he could ask Chang-hu what went wrong. In the vision, Chang-hu's spectral form gives a respectful bow, whisper bidding his final farewell before fading into starlight. The patriarch desperately reaches his hand out, trying to grasp the fading particles of light, but they slip through his fingers. He cries out in agony, begging his nephew to speak to him just one more time. The patriarch's expression shifts from pure sorrow to burning rage, his eyes bloodshot with grief. Outside his chamber, a young man stands quietly in the courtyard, watching the patriarch's room with a worried look. It is the second young master, Li Tongye. He stands under the moonlight looking anxious as he senses the dark mood of the house. He mutters to himself, wondering how a powerful cultivator like his father could have such a vivid, disturbing dream during meditation. The patriarch opens his chamber doors, his grim expression immediately telling his son that something is terribly wrong. The patriarch immediately asks where his eldest son is. Li Tongye stammers, a bad feeling rising in his chest. He explains that his big brother was called away by the tenants early this morning to handle some urgent matters regarding the fields. Hearing this, the patriarch doesn't waste a second. He yells at Tongye to bring his brother back immediately, but then decides he can't wait and rushes out himself. He charges forward with immense speed, leaving a bewildered Tongye staring in absolute shock. Despite his age and old injuries, the patriarch leaps over the high courtyard wall with incredible grace and power. He vanishes over the wall, rushing toward the village gates where the tragedy occurred. At the village gates, the heavy wooden doors are pushed open, letting out a loud, ominous creak. One of the village elders stands at the threshold, staring out into the dark night with a deeply troubled expression. A quiet, solemn procession of villagers slowly walks through the gates, carrying Chang-hu's covered body on a wooden stretcher. The elderly refugee leader stands in the background, his face completely shadowed with heavy guilt and sorrow. The village elder closes his eyes, trying to process the devastating loss of one of their brightest young men. The guard next to him looks down in absolute silence, completely at a loss for words. Another elder arrives at the gate, his eyes widening as he demands to know what on earth is going on. The entire gateway is packed with somber villagers as they gather around the stretcher, a thick blanket of grief hanging over the crowd. One of the guards quietly explains the tragic details of the sudden attack to the arriving elder. A close-up of Chang-hu's pale face reveals the brutal reality of the assassin's strike. Suddenly, Chang-hu's younger brother rushes forward, throwing himself over the body and screaming in pure agony, demanding to know who did this. He weeps uncontrollably, his hands trembling as he clutches his brother's cold chest. A booming, furious voice cuts through the weeping, echoing with such power that it makes everyone freeze in their tracks. The younger brother looks up, tears streaming down his face as he sees who has just arrived. The uncle steps forward, his face pale and grim as he prepares to deliver the bitter truth to the family. He grits his teeth, announcing to everyone that Chang-hu was brutally murdered by one of the refugees. The younger brother looks up in sheer disbelief, asking Uncle Tian to explain what exactly happened out there. A stern guard adds that the culprit is highly suspected to be a dangerous leftover remnant of the Yuan family seeking blood. The patriarch, Li Mutian, points with a look of absolute authority and fury, calling out to Li Tongye. He addresses the panicked villagers, telling them to disperse for the night to avoid further chaos while they handle the situation. The elders quickly agree, bowing respectfully to the patriarch and preparing to lead the villagers away. Heartbreaking cries of despair echo through the gates as the women of the family weep, watching the stretcher being carried away. Chang-hu's pregnant wife collapses in tears, completely devastated as her loved ones try to support her. The solemn procession slowly moves deeper into the village courtyard, leaving a trail of sorrow in its wake. The patriarch commands Ping An to take Pinger inside to rest. He then orders Shou Shui to accompany Lu Linfeng and keep a highly vigilant watch on the refugees. He notes that until their family takes a clear stance, the refugees will likely be too terrified to make any moves. The guards bow deeply, acknowledging their orders with absolute seriousness. The full moon shines brightly in the quiet night sky, casting cold, silent light over the tragic scene. Standing alone, the patriarch looks up at the moon, tears finally streaming down his rugged face as he whispers his nephew's name. The weight of the loss completely crushes his hardened exterior, his eyes filled with immense sorrow. He lets out a painful, muffled sob, mourning the young life that was taken so brutally and unfairly. In the distance, the silhouette of the procession fades away under a gentle shower of white leaves, as if the earth itself is mourning. The mountains remain silent and cold under the pale moonlight, completely indifferent to the human tragedy below. In the dark grass nearby, a sharp axe head gleams under the moonlight, hinting at the violence that still lingers in the shadows. A mysterious figure quietly makes his way up the rugged mountain path, moving with a dark and deliberate purpose. The tall reeds sway gently in the night wind, hiding whatever secrets are moving through the dark. An older man carefully parts the tall reeds, his eyes scanning the dark forest with intense focus. In a small clearing ahead lies a simple, lonely gravestone beautifully illuminated by glowing blue magical fireflies. He stares at the grave with a stern, deeply determined look, preparing himself for whatever dark secrets are about to be reunited. We return to the quiet clearing, where the dark-haired assassin sits alone in the dark near the grave, unaware that he's being watched. He looks deeply reflective, perhaps dwelling on the brutal action he took earlier. Suddenly, soft rustling echoes through the grass as a foot steps quietly into the clearing. The assassin's eyes instantly flash with a murderous red glow as he senses an intruder. He turns around to see the old refugee leader standing right there. He wonders where on earth this old man came from. Uncle Shu completely ignores the assassin's hostile posture, stepping forward and kneeling directly before the simple gravestone. He touches the cold ground, tearfully calling himself an old and frail slave who was unfortunately unable to exact their blood vengeance upon the Li family. He bows his head all the way to the ground, whispering that fortunately, the heavens had eyes and sent a righteous martial artist to take revenge. The assassin scoffs at the term righteous martial artist, letting out a cold, cynical chuckle as he remembers how many nights of hatred he had to suppress just to land that one fatal strike. Uncle Shu begs the young master to end his life now, believing his purpose in this world is fully complete. The assassin's face twists into a wide, terrifying grin under the moonlight. This dude is pure chaos. The assassin points out that coming to the Yuan family ancestral tomb to weep and complain is incredibly risky. He asks if the old man isn't afraid of the Li family finding trouble with him. Uncle Shu sadly replies that his days are numbered anyway, so he has nothing left to fear. He looks up with tearful eyes, calling the assassin his young master. The assassin is caught off guard, wondering how this old man could possibly know his identity or if he saw him at the edge of the village. He prepares to draw his weapon, thinking it is safer to just silence the old man to avoid any future trouble. But Uncle Shu continues, crying that the mistress used to bring the young master to sit by the fields, which is why he immediately recognized him. He points to the young master's foot, explaining that he still remembers the 3 black moles that serve as absolute proof. The assassin halts, his cold demeanor softening as he asks if the old man truly remembers his mother's face. Uncle Shu responds immediately, saying that, of course he does. He explains that over his many years of painting auspicious symbols for the villagers, he has acquired some decent painting skills. He asks the young master to wait a moment while he uses a branch to sketch his late mistress's face in the dirt. The young master watches silently as the old man starts drawing with steady, practiced movements. But the young master's killer instinct is still active. He holds his dagger just inches away from the old man's neck, debating whether to kidnap him for answers or just end him right here. He decides that since he can't fully confirm the old man's background, it is probably safer to just kill him and be done with it. He raises the sharp blade high, preparing to plunge it down for a silent kill. But suddenly, he stops mid-strike, his eyes widening in complete shock as he looks down at the dirt. In the dirt lies an incredibly detailed and beautiful sketch of a smiling woman, his mother. The sight completely shatters his cold heart. He drops his weapon and falls to his knees, crying out for his mother as tears stream down his face. Uncle Shu weeps along with him, recalling how much the mistress loved him and how she always believed he would grow up to be a tremendously great figure. He sighs heavily, telling the young master that he'll let him have some quiet time with his thoughts while he steps away. The young master whispers a soft agreement, still lost in his deep grief. But as Uncle Shu enters the dark reeds, his expression suddenly turns ice cold as he reaches for a hidden weapon. There is no sadness left on his face, only a ruthless, calculated focus. With terrifying speed, he raises a heavy iron sickle high above the crying young master's head, preparing to strike. He swings it down with all his might, unleashing a brutal and bloody slash. The blow connects heavily, blood spraying everywhere as the assassin is caught completely off guard. Uncle Shu doesn't stop, unleashing a relentless barrage of heavy, brutal strikes. The sharp metal tears through flesh as he continues his ruthless assault. Blood splatters onto the grass, staining the entire clearing. Uncle Shu finally stops, panting heavily as he leans on his weapon, covered in the young master's blood. He stares at the bloody scene, muttering about what a wicked and twisted hand of fate they've both been dealt. Morning finally arrives, and a rooster crows loudly on a wooden fence as the sun begins to rise over the village. A large crowd of anxious refugees is still gathered outside the locked gates of Lijing village, waiting for news. The village guards keep their weapons ready, watching the forest path with highly tense expressions. Suddenly, one of the refugees points down the road, shouting that someone is heading their way. The crowd quickly parts, squinting to see who is walking through the morning mist. To everyone's absolute horror, Uncle Shu walks slowly out of the mist, completely covered in blood and carrying a severed head. The villagers gasp as they recognize the distinctive beast-skin coat worn by the deceased figure. He drops the bloody head onto the ground. It is indeed the ruthless assassin from yesterday. One of the village leaders screams in absolute shock, his face pale with disbelief. The entire crowd erupts into a frenzy of shocked murmurs and frantic questions. Uncle Shu stands calmly amidst the chaos, his face splattered with blood as he awaits the village patriarch. The morning sun rises fully over the rooftops, casting a bright light on this gruesome scene. Uncle Shu steps forward, leaving bloody footprints on the dusty stone path. He kneels respectfully before the village leaders, his clothes heavily soaked in dark blood. The young leader can barely find his words, completely stunned by the old man's sudden and violent action. Uncle Shu calmly places his bloody sickle on the ground, showing that he has finished his task. He bows low, announcing that he has successfully hunted down and killed the Yuan family assassin. The old elder tells him to remain calm and instructs the guards to summon Lu Linfeng to confirm the corpse. He quickly orders Shangping to fetch the witnesses and tells Tong Yi to brew a warm cup of hot tea for the exhausted old man. Tong Yi quickly prepares the tea, pouring a fresh hot cup to help soothe the tense atmosphere. The village guards quickly head down the stairs to carry out their instructions and secure the area. After a careful examination, the guard confirms that the severed head is indeed the assassin who killed Chang Hu. The lifeless, bloody face of the assassin lies in the dirt, his reign of terror finally put to an end. The patriarch looks on, a dark sense of satisfaction settling over his face as justice is served. Chang Hu's younger brother bows deeply to Uncle Shu, expressing his family's eternal gratitude for avenging his brother. But Uncle Shu simply waves his hand dismissively, stating that he only did it to return the kindness he received from Chang Hu and that he desires none of the Li family's wealth. He quietly takes a sip of his tea, his hands still stained with blood from the brutal fight. He adds that he doesn't have many years left to live. If they truly wish to thank him, they can wait until his grandchild is born and bring the child to see him. A few days later, the solemn funeral of Chang Hu is held, with white paper coins scattered through the air in his honor. The younger brother stands silently in his mourning robes, watching the funeral proceedings with a heavy heart. The villagers gather to burn ancestral offerings, sending their prayers for his soul to find peace in the afterlife. Strong laborers lift the heavy wooden support beams, preparing the final resting place for the young master. The long procession slowly carries the coffin out of the village, accompanied by the somber sounds of weeping. His family and friends follow close behind, their faces wet with tears as they bid their final farewell. Later that night, Chang Hu's pregnant wife stands alone on the balcony under the bright full moon, looking incredibly lonely. She weeps silently, tears streaming down her face as she gently touches her stomach. She cradles her belly, wishing her husband could be here to welcome their child into the world. Inside the house, water drips steadily into a wooden basin as preparations are made. The midwives are working frantically, preparing warm water and towels as labor begins. Outside the doors, the patriarch and the younger brother wait anxiously, listening to her painful cries. Finally, the door creaks open, and the midwife announces with a bright smile that the birth was successful. It's a healthy baby boy. The entire family erupts into joy, the dark cloud of grief finally lifting as they celebrate the arrival of the new life. The patriarch turns to Shangping, asking if he has found the auspicious names from the generational texts as he requested. Shangping bows politely, holding up 3 fingers and explaining that he has carefully selected 3 beautiful verses from the fetal breath texts. These beautiful glowing generation characters are displayed, symbolizing the bright future of their family lineage. The patriarch smiles warmly, nodding in approval as he finds the selection to be absolutely excellent. He decrees that from this day forward, all future descendants will follow this naming order, beginning with the character Xuan for boys and Jing for girls. The estate is quiet and peaceful once more under the starry night sky. The warm glow of the lanterns illuminates the courtyard, welcoming the new generation. The patriarch gently asks the young mother if she has thought of a specific name for her baby boy. She smiles tenderly, holding her sleeping baby and stating that she has indeed chosen a name according to his instructions. Her face is filled with pure motherly love as she prepares to announce the name. The adorable baby boy lets out a happy, chubby smile as he sleeps soundly in his mother's arms. She softly announces his name, Li Xuan. Thus, a new chapter begins for the family, born from the ashes of tragedy. Just like that, 2 whole years fly by. The sky over the sect grounds is completely quiet and peaceful. Hidden under some nice shade, we find a guy sitting in deep meditation with glowing golden sparks crackling all around him. This is our main man, Li Jing, and he is pushing his spiritual engine to the limit to break through to the next level. But his peace and quiet gets immediately shattered when this tiny kid comes sprinting into the yard with his arms wide open. Li Jing completely drops his serious cultivator face to catch the little guy in a giant hug, proving that even legendary warriors cannot resist a cute kid. The little guy is named Xuaner, and he is totally hyped to see his favorite uncle, demanding that Li Jing pick him up right now. Right on cue, Xuaner's mom walks in to spoil the fun, telling her son to stop bothering his uncle while he is trying to train. She apologizes with a warm smile, knowing that her brother-in-law is trying to do some serious spiritual heavy lifting. As she carries the little troublemaker away, Li Jing just smiles and enjoys this rare moment of peace. But the peaceful vibe does not last, because Li Jing's brother shows up complaining about how insanely hard it is to master this new technique. He looks completely drained, whining that they have been training for a year and a half and have barely made any progress at all. Li Jing just sighs and tells him to stop being so impatient, since they have barely even scratched the surface of the third layer. Then he flashes a smug smile and promises to show his brother what a real masterclass in magical circulation looks like tonight. Meanwhile, the kids are still running around outside, wreaking absolute havoc in the garden. Their mom is chasing them around, laughing at how much of a little rascal her youngest has turned out to be. The rest of the family gathers around, joking that the grandpa's spoiling has completely ruined the kids. But the old patriarch is not having any of it and immediately calls their claims a load of total nonsense. He tries to put on his toughest face, but everyone knows the old man is a total softie for his grandkids. One of the brothers points out that ever since their eldest sibling passed away, their dad was so heartbroken he aged 10 years in a single night. Luckily, the arrival of the new baby gave the old man a reason to smile again and finally pull himself together. After that, the patriarch gathers everyone together to make a major announcement about the family business. He reveals that he wants to bring Li Yesheng closer to his side to help run things around here. This sudden move catches the family off guard, making them wonder if putting this guy in charge is actually a safe bet. One of them agrees that it makes sense, since they are too busy trying to ascend to godhood to worry about everyday chores. But Li Jing smells a rat and warns them that giving Yesheng this much control might just lead to him stealing from the family bank. The patriarch is not worried at all, telling everyone he still has a solid decade left in him to keep the guy on a tight leash. He figures that by the time the next generation takes over, Yesheng will not even get a chance to try any funny business. They all agree that as long as they play good cop, bad cop, everything should work out just fine. Looking up at the dark sky, Li Jing starts thinking about what the next 10 years of his training are going to look like. The crescent moon shines down on the quiet mountains, setting a nice, peaceful mood for the night. Under the moonlight, the three brothers sit down together and start glowing as they sync up their energy for some team training. Li Jing asks his brothers to watch his back while he tries to pull off a highly dangerous breakthrough. His big brother tells him to go for it and focus entirely on building his new energy wheel while they guard the place. With his personal security guard set up, Li Jing closes his eyes and lets his spiritual energy go wild. He remembers his training about how the human body has three main energy centers called dantians. These spots are in his head, chest, and stomach, acting like batteries for his inner power. He starts imagining golden points of light turning on along his energy lines. First is the lower battery, which stores his raw physical energy. Then the middle one in his chest, which refines his vital ki. And finally, the upper battery in his forehead, which holds his raw mental and spiritual focus. He starts lighting up these energy nodes one by one with absolute precision. But the last steps are insanely hard, requiring him to construct solid energy out of thin air. While the early stuff was a walk in the park, these high-level stages demand absolute control. He channels all that energy directly into his main chest node to lock it in place. Once this connection is locked in, his magic is going to flow through him forever. With this kind of juice, a cultivator can run like a sports car and jump over buildings like they are gravity-free. Shiny golden ribbons of energy start wrapping around him like a glowing safety bubble. He slowly opens his eyes, and they are literally glowing with golden power. Right then, a white-haired cultivator nearby senses this massive spike in the local power grid. She has to release a wave of her own power just to keep her balance as the shockwaves hit her. SFX, Vine Boom. She realizes that with this insane shield up, Li Jing is actually going to pull off his massive breakthrough. But out of nowhere, she senses an absolutely terrifying presence zooming in from the distance and completely freezes. Way up in the clouds, a giant green beam of light flies across the night sky like a glowing comet. She is shaking in her boots, knowing she is totally outclassed by whatever monster is headed their way. Knowing how bad this could go, she tries to mask her presence before she gets spotted. That green light turns out to be a massive flying sword cutting right through the clouds. Standing right on top of it is a powerful old guy, talking to himself about how the Earth's spiritual energy is finally returning after 3 centuries. But then he stops, sensing a very weird energy spike coming from the tiny mortal village right below him. He remembers that this quiet mountain spot became a safe zone for normal humans after the ancient wars wiped out all the monsters. He flies in closer, looking down at the little village lit up by torches. The old man is shocked to see a kid trying to pull off a major breakthrough with 0 high-level bodyguards around to protect him. He scans the whole place and confirms there are absolutely no other high-tier cultivators around to watch his back. He laughs, guessing this kid must be the secret child of some wandering cultivator who abandoned him here, but his smugness turns to pure shock when he sees how easily the kid is spinning his spiritual wheel. He cannot help but smile, totally blown away by this kid's raw talent and focus. But he wonders how far the boy can really go in a basic village without any real cultivation manuals or magic pills. He figures that without a real master, the kid is just going to hit a wall and turn to dust in a few hundred years. So he decides to crash the party, sending a massive pillar of green light shooting down into the courtyard. SFX, Vine Boom. He wants to offer the kid a golden ticket, knowing how rare it is to find this kind of talent in the middle of nowhere. The old man lands like a superhero right in the middle of the yard, glowing like a giant green neon sign. The patriarch and the brothers instantly freak out, breaking their concentration to face this random intruder. The elder looks them over and realizes that all three brothers actually have spiritual roots. Now he is totally convinced these kids must be the secret children of some legendary master, because their energy is insanely pure. He smirks, thinking about how rare it is for a cultivator to hit the jackpot with 3 high-potential kids at once. This immediately makes him want to draft them into his own sect right away. Meanwhile, Li Jing lets out a sigh of relief as his power finally calms down. He happily tells his dad that he actually managed to pull off the breakthrough. His dad starts laughing like a proud parent, celebrating his son's big win. But the green-robed old guy ruins the moment, hovering in the air and getting ready to make his grand speech. He figures that by taking these 3 talented kids, he can easily secure his crew's power in this whole region. He steps forward, fully expecting them to drop to their knees and thank him for this amazing opportunity. Instead, the family just stares at him with pure suspicion, wondering who this weird stranger is and why he just fell out of the sky. The spiky-haired brother steps right in front, defensively demanding to know who he is. The old cultivator just keeps his smug grin, totally ignoring the kid's bad attitude. But our spiky-haired bro is not scared at all, looking completely annoyed and ready to start a fight. The patriarch and his sons remain on their knees, looking up in awe at the floating immortal. The patriarch politely asks who this esteemed guest is. The guest introduces himself with absolute dignity as Si Yuanbai, the Peak Master of Qingshui Peak from the legendary Qingqi sect. The 2 brothers exchange shocked glances, realizing they are standing in the presence of a true titan of the cultivation world. Si Yuanbai tells them not to be nervous. He explains that since they reside on the ancient Li Road and have stepped onto the path of cultivation, they naturally fall under the protective jurisdiction of the Qingqi sect. Hearing this, the eldest brother lets out a soft sigh of relief, glad that this incredibly powerful master isn't hostile. He bows deeply, explaining that they are just humble villagers who inadvertently condensed the Xuanjing wheel without knowing any of the grand sects. Si Yuanbai strokes his chin, noting that because this road has been abandoned for centuries, it makes sense that the local villagers have never heard of the great Qingqi sect. He asks them to watch closely, raising his hand as he begins to manifest a bright, glowing sphere of green spiritual energy. He projects a stunning, glowing map of the entire region, showing the exact boundaries of their territory. The brothers are completely mesmerized by his masterclass of energy control, realizing just how vast the gap is between them and a true master. He realizes that even though they've learned basic formulas, they struggle to even mold energy into simple shapes, let alone a perfect 3-dimensional map. Si Yuanbai explains that the chaotic war from the southern state of Wu won't reach this region, as it is fully protected by their sect's spatial barriers. The map clearly marks the state of Yu and the vast territory controlled by the Qingqi sect, outlining their grand sphere of influence. He proudly tells them that this is the mighty Qingqi sect, one of the 3 great sects ruling over the entire state of Yue. As the actual rulers of the 5 southern commanderies, the Qingqi sect possesses a complete and highly advanced governance system. The sect dispatches disciples to manage down to the city level, conveniently utilizing local clans to maintain order over the lower realms. They provide pills and resources to support these local families, who in turn harvest outstanding disciples and raw materials to enrich the main sect. This symbiotic system is widely recognized as the gold standard in the cultivation world, and the Qingqi sect has successfully run it for over 500 years. A grand shot of the sect's mountain palace reveals a majestic stairway leading up into the clouds, representing the ultimate path to immortality. The patriarch nods respectfully, finally understanding the true scale of the legendary organization they are dealing with. He recalls that during his youth when he fought under General Yang, the powerful talismans they used must have been issued by the Qingqi sect. Seeing these legendary symbols brings back old memories of war and survival. Si Yuanbai humbly downplays the title of Immortal Sect, though his confident posture says otherwise. He notes that now that they have officially entered the Xuanjing realm, their family is eligible to receive basic resources and recognition from the sect. He explains that every 5 years, the sect sends representatives to recruit promising disciples from the mortal families, which is highly beneficial for their lineages. The eldest brother politely asks what kind of resources the family can expect to receive from the sect. Si Yuanbai holds up 2 fingers, explaining that every 5 years, they will receive 10 white yuan fruits and 200 caddies of spirit rice. The brother is quiet, realizing that while these resources are valuable, they might also attract dangerous competition from neighboring clans. The patriarch quietly observes the master, wondering if it's purely a coincidence that this powerful cultivator arrived exactly when Jinger broke through. He knows the master likely wants to recruit Jinger to join the Qingxi sect due to his outstanding natural talent. The patriarch reflects that having Jinger join the sect isn't necessarily a bad thing, as staying in these deep mountains would only waste his vast potential. He turns to his son, calling out his name with a gentle but highly serious tone. Jinger looks back at his father, his eyes filled with absolute determination and readiness. He steps forward and bows deeply before Si Yuanbai, expressing his desire to study under the master's prestigious tutelage as a sweeping boy. Si Yuanbai introduces himself properly as Peak Master Si, promising that he will treat his new disciple with the utmost care and respect. He raises his hand, manifesting a glowing sphere of green spiritual light to present a special gift to his new disciple. A small, beautifully embroidered pouch floats down into Jinger's hands, pulsing with high-level spatial magic. Si Yuanbai explains that this is a storage bag, which Jinger will be able to fully use once he cultivates the Yujing wheel. Inside the bag are 2 parcels. The larger one contains the precious seeds of spirit rice, and the smaller one holds the seeds of the white yuan fruit. He also presents 3 ancient scrolls containing highly sought-after cultivation methods used by rogue cultivators in the state of Yue. The scrolls float gracefully before the patriarch, offered as a grand gesture of goodwill and alliance. The brothers catch the scrolls, bowing deeply and expressing their immense gratitude to the immortal master. Si Yuanbai waves his hand casually, telling them there's no need for such formalities. He then asks what specific cultivation method they are currently practicing. He watches them with a keen, curious expression, interested to know where they obtain such high-quality training. The brothers exchange extremely nervous glances, unsure how to answer without revealing their family secrets. Si Yuanbai smiles, assuming that some mysterious senior must have left them these instructions and sworn them to secrecy. Si Yuanbai nods, saying there is no need to force them to break their promise to a senior, which brings a huge wave of relief to the family. He pulls out one final item, a beautifully crafted, glowing green seal of the Qingxi sect. The seal radiates a brilliant and warm light, pulsing with the official magical signature of their peak. He explains that this is the official token of affiliation to the Qingsui peak of the Qingxi sect. With this token, they can officially draw territorial boundaries with neighboring clans and seek direct help from the sect if needed. The eldest brother holds the precious scrolls tight, realizing their family has just taken a massive step toward ultimate security and power. Si Yuanbai turns to his new disciple, gently telling him to go bid a proper farewell to his loving family. Jinger nods weakly, his eyes filling with tears as he prepares to leave his home for the very first time. He shares a deeply emotional embrace with his mother and brothers, promising to study hard and make them proud. His father and brothers watch with heavy but incredibly proud hearts, knowing this is the best path for his future. The patriarch nods silently, holding back his tears as he gives his beloved son his final blessing. Jinger wipes his tears and stands up, his expression turning into one of absolute focus and resolve. He walks over to Si Yuanbai's side, announcing that he has bid his farewells and is ready to depart. Si Yuanbai laughs heartily, incredibly pleased to have secured such an outstanding talent for his peak. He raises his hand, summoning a massive wave of green spiritual energy to lift them into the air. The bright green light wraps around them, forming a majestic floating platform that begins to rise. The two of them slowly ascend into the starry night sky, heading toward the legendary mountains of the Qingxi sect. The family remains in the courtyard, bowing deeply as they watch their beloved son and brother depart on his immortal journey. Their voices echo through the valley as they respectfully send off the immortal master, praying for Jinger's safety. They stand together under the moonlight, watching the green streak of light fade into the distant clouds. The brilliant green streak of light flies over the quiet mountain peaks, bringing a historic and unforgettable night to a peaceful close. After the immortal master departs, the brothers gather in the study, carefully examining the rare gifts left behind. They look at the manual detailing the rogue cultivator techniques. They unroll the thick bamboo scrolls, feeling the immense weight of the knowledge they now hold. The second brother reads aloud, identifying it as the Qing Yuan Wheel, Nurturing Method, a first-grade cultivation method for the fetal breath realm. He notes that it requires daily breathing exercises and doesn't rely heavily on absorbing moon essence. He points out that while it is highly practical, it still doesn't compare to their own family's highly secret technique. He emphasizes that their own ancestral technique is vastly superior to these basic scrolls. He remains focused, realizing they must use these public scrolls to hide the true nature of their family's superior power. He asks his second brother if they can truly trust Peak Master Si Yuanbai, noting that letting Jinger leave so hastily feels a bit reckless. The second brother replies calmly, asking what other choice they really had. If the master were malicious, he could have easily destroyed them instead of giving them gifts and a sector token. He picks up another scroll, identifying it as a second-grade cultivation technique for the chi refining stage. He reveals the title of the scroll as the Lixia Secret Memorandum. He explains that this secret memorandum contains crucial information regarding territory distribution in Jin Commandery, which is exactly what they urgently need. The text details that cultivation methods are divided into 9 grades, with first grade being the lowest and 9th grade being the ultimate pinnacle. He notes that all techniques, pills, and magical artifacts correspond to specific cultivation realms, wondering what grade their own family's technique falls under. He reaches out, picking up the glowing green seal of the Qingqi sect that was left on the table. He channels his golden spiritual energy into the seal, causing it to glow with brilliant green and yellow lights. The seal projects a majestic, glowing map over Lijing village, confirming their territory falls under the official rule of the Qingqi sect. He gasps in awe as the map reveals the vast mountain passes and villages that now fall under their family's jurisdiction. The patriarch, Li Mutian, watches his sons with a deep sense of pride, seeing the incredible potential of his family's new path. The map clearly shows several surrounding villages, including Lichuan Pass and Lidao Pass. He realizes that, in other words, these territories now officially belong to the Li family. With the backing of the mighty Qingqi sect, their family has officially gained the power and standing they've desperately needed. The patriarch declares that they no longer need to hide their true strength, and they can finally build their power openly and honorably. He announces that their next major move to expand and secure their new territories will begin tomorrow night. The next day, the morning sun rises quietly over the rooftops, signaling the start of a historic day of change. One of the local villagers looks out of his window, sensing a strange, tense energy hanging over Lijing village. People start gathering in the main square, whispering and wondering what major announcement is about to happen. An older man stands with his walking stick, his face showing concern as the crowd continues to grow. A young messenger rushes up to Auntie Li, telling her to inform her brother to head to the back of the village as the patriarch has crucial matters to discuss. Another villager is invited by the Li family, happily replying that he will definitely be there to hear the news. An older woman looks pensive, wondering what the Li family is planning to do. Her companion replies that guessing is useless and they should just head over and find out. Under the glowing full moon, the villagers make their way to the village square to hear the grand announcement. A massive crowd of villagers and refugees has gathered in the square, the quiet night air filled with immense anticipation. The second brother stands before the gathering, his calm and dignified posture instantly quieting the crowd. Some of the villagers whisper in confusion, noting that the patriarch, Li Mutian, is nowhere to be seen at such a major event. He raises his voice, apologizing for the disturbance. He announces the incredible news that an immortal from the Qingqi sect visited them last night and took his younger brother Jinger to practice immortal methods. The crowd gasps in absolute shock, their faces pale with disbelief as they whisper about a legendary immortal visiting their humble village. He sighs, noting that Jinger must possess highly rare spiritual orifices, which is why the cultivators of the great sect took him away. The villagers look at the Li family with a completely new level of respect and awe. The village elder bows deeply, offering his warmest congratulations to the family on their incredible blessing. The second brother returns the bow politely, thanking the teacher for his kind and supportive words. Another elder notes that everyone has their own destiny, and having Jinger enter an immortal sect is a massive blessing for the entire village. The refugees and villagers murmur with newfound hope, realizing that their protectors are now backed by a powerful immortal sect. He raises the glowing green seal high, channeling his spiritual energy to project its majestic power. The crowd gasps as the glowing green energy projects the official seal of the sect over their heads. They drop to their knees, pointing at the glowing celestial writing and whispering that the immortals are truly protecting them. He unleashes a burst of golden light from his palm, demonstrating his own impressive cultivation progress. He announces that the immortal master has officially commanded the Li family to guard the surrounding villages, including Lichuan Pass and Lidao Pass. Yellow lightning crackles intensely around his arm as he unleashes the full magical power of the sect seal. The massive burst of golden energy blasts through the square, illuminating the night sky with a spectacular display of power. The villagers bow low, their faces illuminated by the warm golden light as they accept their new leaders. The magical seal pulses one last time, cementing their family's supreme authority over the region. Every single villager and refugee in the square drops to their knees in absolute submission. They shout in unison, declaring their absolute loyalty and willingness to follow the Lee family as their supreme leaders. The second brother tells them there is no need for such dramatic gestures, as they are all fellow villagers and relatives. He looks out over the crowd, thinking to himself that the winds of change are indeed blowing over Guli Road. The scene shifts to the dark, rugged pass of Lichuan, where a small caravan is quietly traveling. They pass through the stone gateway of Lichuan Pass, which has suffered from a brutal drought over 20 years ago and has barely 100 households left. The second brother and his guard walk through the quiet streets, discussing their plans to distribute land and help the struggling locals. He holds a ledger containing the list of families, noting that they have successfully cleared out the corrupt wealthy households and lowered the land tax to help the poor. He notes that they ultimately need to send someone reliable to take charge of this pass. However, they struggle to find anyone in the family who can read and write well enough for the job. His companion tells him not to worry too much, as their father and brother will surely arrange everything properly. They continue their walk, the golden spiritual energy of their talismans guiding their steps in the dark. Far in the sky, a brilliant green streak of light flies over the mountain peaks once more, leaving a glowing trail. It is Peak Master Si Yuanbai, carrying his new disciple Jinger through the clouds toward the Qingqi sect. Jinger looks down at the majestic mountains below, his heart racing as he remembers the ancient saying that a true man should ride the wind and grasp the moon. He grits his teeth, his eyes shining with absolute determination to master the immortal path and protect his family. Peak Master Si Yuanbai looks at his new disciple's determined expression, letting out a soft, pleased chuckle. They finally arrive at the Grand Qingsui Peak, a majestic mountain range featuring towering peaks and suspension bridges floating above a golden sea of clouds. Jinger stands in absolute awe, his eyes wide as he gazes upon the breathtaking beauty of the legendary immortal sect. Elegant white cranes fly gracefully near the suspension bridges, completing this picture-perfect paradise. Si Yuanbai raises his hand, presenting a beautiful, glowing green jade pendant to officially welcome him to the peak. The pendant floats down gently, its green magical signature sealing his new identity as a proud disciple of the Qingsui Peak as the chapter ends. As they descend onto the majestic peak of Qingsui, another disciple is already waiting patiently in the courtyard to welcome them. A beautiful white crane flies down gracefully, holding the official sect pendant in its long beak. The disciple bows respectfully, greeting Martial Uncle Si Yuanbai on his successful return. The crane gently tilts its head, presenting the official green jade pendant to the new recruit. Si Yuanbai reaches out and takes the glowing pendant, his face lit with a warm, welcoming smile. The crane lets out a soft cry and flaps its large wings, taking off back into the sea of golden clouds. Jinger receives the pendant from his master, marveling at the pure, warm spiritual energy flowing through the polished stone. The older disciple watches them with curiosity, quietly asking who this young newcomer is. Si Yuanbai introduces Jinger as the newly accepted disciple of their Azure Pond Peak. Jinger bows politely to his new senior brother with a warm smile. The white crane soars high above the towering peaks, its silhouette framed beautifully by the golden afternoon sun. They stand on the edge of the cliff, looking out at the grand magical barrier that envelops the entire sect. The heavy white clouds roll over the deep valleys, hiding the ancient defense formations of the sect. Si Yuanbai explains that this is the Tianyuan Grand Spirit Array of the Qingqi sect, an incredibly profound barrier that completely seals the spiritual veins of the mountain. Jinger looks up in sheer awe as the massive glowing energy lanes pulse in the sky, realizing no intruder could ever hope to break through. Golden spiritual particles drift gently around him, the rich energy of the mountain feeling incredibly pure and refreshing. The white crane lands on a beautiful wooden bridge ahead, leading them toward the main training halls. Si Yuanbai gestures with his fingers, parting the thick mist to reveal the path forward. A grand celestial stairway is revealed, leading directly toward a massive glowing sun formation at the peak of the mountain. Back in the village, the patriarch and his sons are holding a private meeting, carefully planning how to manage their newly acquired territories. The eldest son reviews the demographic records, noting that they now have a total of over 4,000 people under their direct care. He tells the patriarch that there is another highly urgent matter regarding the neighboring clans that they must discuss. He reveals that the elders of the Yi clan came to visit him last night, hoping to restore their original ancestral surname. The eldest son is surprised by the request, asking if they really want to change their surname back after all these years. The patriarch lets out a soft cough, recalling that the Yi clan ancestors were originally a collateral branch of the Li family, but were expelled after making a massive mistake. He notes that neither family originally wanted to bring this up, but now that the Li family is backed by immortals, the Yi clan is desperately clinging to them for protection. He rubs his chin, thinking that while their request is selfish, it could also be a great opportunity to expand their family's influence. The patriarch tells his son to reply to the Yi clan elder, stating that if any branch of their clan produces a talented child with spiritual orifices, they will be permitted to rejoin the Li family. The sons bow respectfully, acknowledging their father's wise and strategic decision. He turns back to the map, preparing to assign specific trusted members to manage the newly acquired villages. He assigns Jingyang Village, which has the largest population and is the most prosperous, to Uncle Ren due to his exceptional trust and experience. Lidao Pass, which is right next to the Guli Road and faces a highly complex situation with refugees, is assigned to the cunning Shu Wenshan and his group. The sons are deeply impressed, realizing their father has thought of every single detail to secure the village's future. He notes that their most urgent task now is to use the spirit-seeking technique from the scrolls to find and cultivate spiritual fields. Back in the sky, Si Yuanbai and Jing'er continue their flight, the green trail of light cutting through the clouds. Si Yuanbai looks back at his new disciple with a warm, encouraging smile as they approach the main sect peak. Jing'er asks his master which specific path among the 100 arts of cultivation they practice on Qingsui Peak. Si Yuanbai proudly explains that their Azure Pond Peak has always been legendary within the sect for its supreme sword arts. Jing'er's eyes light up with pure excitement, thrilled to learn that he will be studying the legendary path of the sword. Si Yuanbai smiles, pleased with his disciple's eagerness to learn. A graceful white crane glides alongside them, welcoming them to the main training grounds of the peak. He notes that because their grandmaster passed away early, he had to study various auxiliary arts to help sustain the peak during difficult times. He laughs heartily, telling Jing'er that despite the hardships, they are still a proud and powerful peak. A brilliant green beam of energy shoots into the sky, signaling their official arrival at the Azure Pond Peak. The energy forms a beautiful, glowing celestial dome over the mountain, welcoming the new disciple. Si Yuanbai leads Jing'er down the grand stone steps, telling him he will introduce him to his senior brothers first. Two senior disciples stand waiting respectfully on the stairs. Si Yuanbai explains that Jing'er is ranked 7th among his disciples. He introduces his third senior brother, Xiao Yuanqi, who looks incredibly sharp and skilled. Next, he introduces his fourth senior sister, Yuan Tuan, who greets him with a warm, gentle smile. Jing'er bows deeply, greeting his new senior brother and sister with the utmost respect. The senior sister steps forward, presenting a beautiful jade pendant as a special welcoming gift. Jing'er receives the gift with a bright smile, deeply touched by their warm hospitality. The third senior brother also presents him with a high-level sword manual that he acquired during his travels as a meeting gift. The jade pendant glows with a soft, soothing light designed to help steady his mind during deep meditation. Jing'er bows deeply once more, thanking his amazing senior brother and sister for their wonderful gifts. He looks around curiously, politely asking why the other senior brothers and sisters aren't present to welcome them. Si Yuanbai's expression turns incredibly solemn as he explains that his eldest senior brother was an outstanding talent who unfortunately failed his breakthrough and perished. He adds that the others either fell in battle against demonic beasts or perished during dangerous bottlenecks, highlighting the brutal reality of their path. Jing'er looks down in absolute shock, realizing that the path of immortal cultivation is paved with immense danger and sacrifice. Si Yuanbai looks out over the mountain peaks, warning him that on this path they must fight to win, or they will surely perish with no room for pity. He emphasizes that their Azure Pond Peak must also fight to survive, or their entire heritage will be extinguished in this harsh world. The chapter closes on a powerful note, reminding him that the world of cultivation strictly follows the law of the jungle, where only the strong survive, and the weak are ruthlessly consumed. We return to the village fields, where the young masters of the Li family are surveying their newly planted white origin fruits. The eldest brother notes that after surveying the fields, they've realized the spiritual soil is incredibly small and fragmented. He explains that although the spiritual land is fragmented, they successfully managed to plant 10 white origin fruits in this secluded spot. He turns to his brother, asking how the task he entrusted to Ye Sheng has been progressing. Ye Sheng stands respectfully, ready to deliver his report. Ye Sheng explains that he has already given the orders as instructed. Apart from the designated villagers delivering supplies, no one else will dare approach this sacred field. He promises that they can now cultivate and farm here in absolute peace, which is a major win for their lineage. The eldest brother asks how Zhangping's cultivation progress is going. Ye Sheng dejectedly mentions that while he has not seen it with his own eyes, he heard that when Zhangping sowed the spirit rice, the local villagers actually fell to their knees and began worshipping him outside the courtyard. The eldest brother smiles, finding the villagers' reaction to be quite amusing but highly beneficial for their family's divine image. He instructs Ye Sheng to go check if all the children from the surrounding villages have gathered for the upcoming talent test. In the quiet field, the precious white origin fruit hangs silently, slowly absorbing the residual spiritual energy of the earth. The young cultivator steps into the field, preparing his mind to perform a high-level elemental spell to nourish the plants. He forms a hand seal, gathering bright blue moisture from the air to perform the spirit rain technique. The green and blue energy swirls majestically around him, channeling the pure life essence of the water elements. He thrusts his hand upward, directing the concentrated spiritual energy directly into the gathering storm clouds. A sudden, nourishing downpour of rain begins to fall over the dry fields, instantly revitalizing the soil. The spiritual rain waters the entire village, bringing a fresh, clean scent to the mountain air. The heavy droplets wash over the white origin fruits, feeding them with pure, condensed chi. The fruits begin to glow with a soft, magical light as they greedily absorb the rich spiritual moisture. They pulse with life, growing slightly larger and healthier in just a matter of minutes. The young master falls to his knees, panting heavily as he admits that performing the spirit rain technique consumes a massive amount of his spiritual energy. He catches his breath, realizing that keeping these spiritual fields healthy requires a tremendous amount of daily care and manpower. He stands up, resolving to return to his chamber to regulate his magical power before the testing of the village children begins. Meanwhile, near the ancient boundary tree of Pingying village, crowds are beginning to gather. A long, quiet procession of families and children slowly makes its way to the testing grounds, hope and anxiety filling the air. The young children stand close to their parents, their eyes wide as they wait to see if they possess the rare gift of spiritual orifices. Two villagers whisper quietly, discussing the sudden change of managers in the neighboring passes. They whisper about the new managers, Chen Nu of Lichuan Pass and Shu Wenshan of Lidao Pass, noting that they've never liked each other and will likely compete fiercely. One of them adds that when Chen Nu learned he was appointed as manager, he kowtowed 9 times in front of the Li family courtyard in sheer gratitude. Standing nearby, Chen Nu holds his wooden staff, quietly acknowledging that he knows what people say behind his back. However, he remains deeply grateful to the Li family for saving his ill wife. A villager approaches him respectfully, calling out his new title and snapping him out of his deep thoughts. The villager looks at him with curiosity, wondering what the intense manager is thinking about. Chen Nu turns and walks away silently, his mind focused entirely on carrying out his duties for the family. The morning sun shines fully over the courtyard as the official testing preparations begin. The villagers continue to discuss the rules, noting that children aged 7 to 13 are eligible for the test, and the Li family will accept anyone who possesses spiritual orifices. In his courtyard, the second brother sits in calm meditation, focusing his mind before the test begins. He opens his eyes and looks up at the sky, sensing that the time for the gathering has finally arrived. The heavy wooden gates of the estate are pushed open, welcoming the families inside. He walks out to meet the crowd, his calm presence bringing a complete silence over the anxious parents. His younger brother smiles warmly, asking if he is ready to begin the official testing process. He nods gently, confirming that it is time to start. The bright morning sun illuminates the beautiful garden, creating a peaceful and hopeful atmosphere. The young children in the crowd point excitedly, whispering to each other that the legendary immortal has finally arrived. He addresses the large gathering, apologizing for keeping them waiting and welcoming them to the estate. He raises his hand, announcing that the talent test will officially begin now. The children stand in neat, anxious rows before the elevated wooden platform, their hearts racing as their names are called. The parents stand behind their children, holding up their village banners and praying for a miracle. He looks at the children, wondering if any of them will actually possess the rare immortal destiny today. The second brother reads the first name from his scroll, calling out Chen Lifu from Lichuan Pass. A young, nervous boy steps out from the crowd and slowly makes his way toward the platform. The second brother places his hand gently on the boy's shoulder, channeling a soft stream of spiritual energy to test his meridians. Bright golden sparks crackle softly around the boy, but the energy quickly fades away. The second brother sighs quietly, announcing that Lichuan Pass has finished testing, and next they will begin testing the children of Jingyang village. He notes to his guard that those possessing spiritual orifices are truly 1 in 1,000, and finding even a single one would be a massive victory. He reads the next name from his scroll, calling out Lu Rushuan from Jingyang village. A young, quiet girl steps forward from the crowd, her face showing a mix of hope and nervousness. He notes that she is 14 years old, which is slightly past the ideal age limit, but decides to test her anyway. As he places his hand on her shoulder, a powerful and intense wave of golden spiritual energy erupts around her. She looks up in absolute awe as the warm, golden light wraps around her body like a protective shield. The crowd gasps in amazement, their eyes wide as they witness the brilliant display of spiritual power. The second brother smiles warmly, wrapping her in his protective green energy to stabilize her newly awakened orifices. He nods in approval, finding her natural talent and spiritual capacity to be exceptionally good. He tells her to stand behind him, officially welcoming her as a newly accepted recruit of their clan. The villagers of her home village erupt into cheers and applause, incredibly proud of her amazing achievement. The testing continues as the next group of children prepares to take their turn on the platform. The banner for Ladao Pass is raised high as their children step forward. He continues the process, placing his hand on another child's shoulder as a soft glow manifests. The child walks back to the crowd with a dejected look. Another failed attempt. The second brother sighs, announcing that both Jingyang Village and Ladao Pass have finished their testing with no other successes besides Lu Rushuan. The village elders look solemn, realizing just how incredibly rare the gift of spiritual orifices truly is. He calls out the final village, Lijing Village, summoning a young boy named Ye Chu-yang. Ye Chu-yang steps forward with a very calm and determined expression, ready to face his destiny. He walks up the wooden steps with steady, confident strides. His friends watch him from the crowd, whispering and hoping that he will be the one to bring glory to their village. He stands quietly before the second brother, his calm posture showing no fear as the final and most anticipated test of the day is about to begin. Back at Lijing Village, Ye Chu-yang slowly makes his way through the massive, quiet crowd of villagers, his face completely calm. He thinks to himself that since their Yi family is originally a subsidiary branch of the Li family, they must surely possess some residual immortal destiny. His father stands sternly behind him, his arms crossed as he stares ahead with immense pride and confidence. The proud father, Ye Chengfu, watches his son step onto the platform, completely convinced his boy is destined for greatness. Yi Chuyang steps onto the wooden platform, looking up respectfully at the second young master. He closes his eyes, preparing himself as the second brother raises his hand to test his meridians. As the second brother channels his spiritual energy, a brilliant and warm golden light immediately begins to swirl around the boy. Ye Chengfu holds his breath, sweat dripping down his face as he watches the golden light intensify. The golden spiritual streams wrap tightly around his chest and arms, confirming a highly successful connection. The second brother's eyes widen in surprise, amazed that another child with spiritual orifices has actually appeared from their own family bloodline. The second brother turns to the family, asking who the boy's father is since his surname is Yi. Yi Chengfu steps forward, proudly introducing himself. The young boy looks back at his father with a proud, happy smile, thrilled to have made him proud. The second brother smiles warmly, offering his sincerest congratulations to Ye Chengfu on his son's amazing talent. Ye Chengfu bows deeply with his hands clasped, expressing his infinite gratitude to the immortal master. The second brother tells him there is no need for such politeness, and calls out for the next child to step forward. The testing continues as another child steps onto the stage, surrounded by a soft golden glow. Unfortunately, the energy quickly fades, and the second brother lets out a soft sigh, confirming a failed attempt. He reflects on how incredibly elusive immortal destiny truly is, as only a select few are born with the necessary spiritual gift. The villagers look on with heavy hearts, realizing just how rare and precious the gift of cultivation is. After the testing concludes, the second brother instructs the 3 village overseers to follow him to the Li family courtyard to review the land deeds and accounts. The overseers bow respectfully, acknowledging his instructions and preparing to follow. He leads the group back toward the main mansion, leaving the quiet town square behind. An elder watches them depart with a look of deep, silent respect. They walk through the scenic courtyard under the cool evening sky, heading toward the patriarch's chamber. The group stands before the ancestral hall, preparing to pay their respects to the ancestors. They light 3 sticks of incense, presenting them before the ancestors of the Li family to officially reclaim their ancestral surname. The second brother declares that from this day forward, the father and son will officially reclaim their original family name and be named Li Chengfu and Li Chuyang. Li Chengfu kneels and respectfully presents a fresh cup of hot tea to the patriarch, Li Mutian. The patriarch graciously receives the tea, officially declaring that Chuyang is now a child of the main Li family. He takes a slow sip, stating that since the boy possesses a rare spiritual aperture, it is only natural that they pass their secret cultivation methods down to him. Li Chengfu bows deeply, promising to keep the patriarch's wise teachings close to his heart. The patriarch instructs young Cheung to follow Xiaoping to the spiritual fields of Jingyang Village, where he will practice under his direct guidance. Young Chuyang holds his bamboo scroll tightly, bowing politely and promising to head off to the main house to begin his cultivation. He turns and walks out of the hall, his heart filled with excitement for the incredible journey ahead. Li Chengfu watches his son depart with a look of pure, paternal pride. The second brother tells Chuyang to follow him to the spiritual fields, leaving the hall to begin their training. Back in the hall, the patriarch gently places the lid on his teacup, his mind deeply focused on the family's next moves. He tells Li Chengfu to go pack his belongings and move his entire household to the back of the village in a few days. Li Chengfu bows politely, promising to head back and pack their things immediately as instructed. The patriarch then instructs the second brother to bring the Liu family girl into the courtyard to see her potential. He warns that even if she successfully condenses her scenery wheel, they must not teach her any advanced spells just yet to protect their family secrets. The second brother nods in agreement, finding it to be a highly wise and strategic arrangement to prevent other families from growing too powerful. The patriarch takes another slow sip, stating that it is still far too early to tell if she will succeed. He asks his son how long it would take these children to condense their wheels without the aid of the mirror or resources. The second brother replies with absolute certainty, stating it would take far longer than a year. He explains that after perusing the Azure Origin Wheel nurturing scripture, he realized the cultivated energy is highly superficial and weak with numerous hindrances. Condensing the wheel would take at least 3 years. The patriarch nods, agreeing that since the scripture yields such sluggish progress, they have no real reason to guard against them too fiercely. The second brother bows, agreeing with his father's wisdom and preparing to fetch the Liu family girl. Outside, the cool mountain night breeze rustles the trees, bringing a serene silence to the village. A hand knocks softly on the wooden door of the training chamber, seeking entry. Young Chu Yang rushes into the study, politely stating that he has a few urgent matters regarding his cultivation to consult with the master. The second brother looks up kindly, telling the young boy to speak freely. Chu Yang explains that according to the Immortal Master's scroll, it should take at least a month of intense cultivation to condense a single strand of fetal breathing energy. Yet, he has only been practicing for a few nights, and he has already successfully condensed a perfect strand of energy. Fearing that his unusually rapid progress might have corrupted his cultivation, he rushed over immediately to seek guidance. The second brother is completely stunned by the news, realizing that condensing a strand in just a few nights is a feat reserved only for legendary geniuses. He strokes his chin, wondering if the boy's incredible talent is due to some hidden physical constitution. He asks Chu Yang to think back carefully, wondering if anything unusual or magical has ever happened to him in his past. Chu Yang's eyes light up as he recalls a specific incident from several years ago during a contest of courage with his friends on the rear mountain. He remembers getting separated from his friends and discovering a strange, mystical tree bearing glowing red fruits in a deep mountain cave. Unable to resist the incredible scent, he plucked one of the glowing red fruits and ate it on the spot. Upon returning home, he fell into a deep sleep for 3 consecutive days, and his panicked father had to summon numerous physicians to examine him. Fortunately, he woke up completely unharmed, and his family simply assumed he had eaten something bad. The second brother is utterly amazed, realizing that the strange fruit the boy ate was actually a legendary spiritual root that drastically altered his constitution. He muses that this rare spiritual root is capable of drastically accelerating cultivation, explaining his lightning-fast progress. He smiles warmly, offering his heartfelt congratulations to the boy, and predicting that he will condense the scenery wheel in just a year. But his expression turns highly serious as he points out a far more urgent task: they must locate the exact spot where that spiritual root grows. He commands Chu Yang to lead them up the rear mountain immediately to locate the source of the spiritual root, as the chapter ends on a thrilling cliffhanger. We start off looking at the regional map, laying out Lijing Village, Jingyang Village, Lichuan Pass, and Lidao Pass. Lidao Pass is apparently quite complex and lacks any major family's restraint. Manager Xu Wenshan is leaning over the table, examining the map intently. He seems to have quite a few schemes brewing for this complex territory. He's definitely not content with just sitting around collecting rent and keeping books. Xu Wenshan feels like his potential is totally being wasted in a tiny place like this. To establish his worth, he wants to find new ways to impress the master family. He is determined to completely overshadow Chen Ernu, his rival over in Lichuan Pass. But his plotting gets interrupted when his subordinate suddenly bursts through the door. The guy looks completely panicked as he delivers some urgent news. It turns out the villagers from Lichuan Pass are at it again, picking a massive fight over the local water supply. It looks like the feud is about to boil over. Xu Wenshan's face turns dark as he mutters that they'll need to teach those troublemakers a lesson eventually. He asks if Chen Ernu was spotted at the scene. His subordinate confirms he didn't see the rival manager anywhere near the dispute. Wenshan stands up, analyzing the situation carefully. He decides that since Chen Ernu hasn't shown his face, it wouldn't be appropriate for him to step in directly. He doesn't want to lower himself by dealing with mere peasants. He points a commanding finger, telling his subordinate to go back and keep a close eye on the scene. If anything changes, he needs an immediate report. The subordinate bows respectfully, acknowledging the order before heading out. It seems everyone in Lidao Pass is absolutely fed up with Lichuan Pass's antics. He watches the door, thinking about how his people are practically gnashing their teeth in anger at Chen Ernu. It's a powder keg just waiting to explode. A sinister grin crosses his face as he realizes this conflict is the perfect tool. He knows that only with a common enemy will the villagers truly gather around him. Wenchen starts pacing, recalling his old caravan days when he purposefully stirred up trouble to keep his subordinates divided. He is betting the master family is doing the exact same thing to them. He stands by the screen fully confident that he has the upper hand in this political game. He's determined to make sure the Li family stays pleased watching them squabble. Looking at the map of the ancient Li Road, a nostalgic thought hits him. He starts wondering if he should return to his old lucrative trade. He recalls his days leading caravans through the lightning-swept dangerous roads. Back then, goods couldn't circulate easily, leaving the isolated villages entirely self-sufficient. He worked those roads for over 20 years and knows every single route like the back of his hand. His old caravan crew used to look incredibly imposing, ready to brave any danger for a profit. He definitely misses that raw influence and power. He is convinced that opening up the mountain roads to sell grain and silk is their best bet. That way, they can trade those goods for precious jade and spiritual items to power up. He bursts into a confident laugh, resolving to head straight to the master family. He wants to pitch this grand plan to them immediately. Meanwhile, back in the quiet Li Jing courtyard at dusk, a peaceful atmosphere fills the air. The newly recruited LaRuchuan sits quietly at the table, perhaps feeling a bit out of place in her new surroundings. Suddenly, the sound of steady footsteps echoes on the stone path outside her room. Someone is approaching her courtyard. She quickly stands up to greet the visitor, bowing respectfully as she recognizes the second young master and calls him her immortal master. Tongya raises a hand with a gentle smile, telling her there is absolutely no need to be so formal. He points out he's only 6 or 7 years older than her, so she can just call him Brother Tongya. She looks up, surprised by his warm and down-to-earth demeanor. She repeats the name softly, feeling a bit more at ease. He hands her a sturdy bamboo scroll containing a fetal breath cultivation method. He warns her to memorize it here and never share it with anyone outside the family. She receives the precious technique with both hands, bowing deeply as she accepts her new responsibility, replying in the affirmative. They sit down together at the stone table for some tea as he explains the household rules. He promises to have meals delivered daily and mentions he will drop by to cast spirit rain on the nearby fields. He pours some fresh tea, telling her she can always ask him any questions that come up during her training. She thanks him politely and asks if her daily utensils and clothes have already been delivered to her room. Tongya nods, confirming everything is already in order. He wants to make sure she has everything she needs to settle in. He then asks if she has ever studied books or learned how to read before. Tongya sips his tea, pleased that he won't have to teach her character by character. He thinks to himself that confining her to this courtyard is a great way to prevent their secrets from leaking out. As they sit in silence, Tongya hears a familiar voice calling out to him from the bamboo gate. It's his younger brother, Li Xiangping, peeking through the gate with a bright smile. Tongya is surprised to see him, asking what brings him to this quiet courtyard so late in the day. Xiangping walks in, waving casually and stating he has some urgent family matters that they need to discuss right away. They pour another cup of tea for Xiangping as they get ready to talk business. They sit around the table, and Xiangping explains the crazy story of how young Chu Yang accidentally ate a mystical spiritual root in a cave. Tongya listens intently, confirming that a rare treasure like that must be the reason behind the boy's insanely fast cultivation speed. Xiangping sips his tea, waiting for his brother's final verdict on the matter. Tongya stands up, deciding they cannot afford to waste a single second. He commands them to gather some sturdy men and head up the back mountain immediately to investigate. The scene shifts to the deep, silent forest where birds fly up into the canopy, startled by the sudden intrusion. Deep within the shadows of the woods, a massive black python is coiled around a tree branch, observing a pair of wild bears below. This mountain is clearly teeming with dangerous beasts. The search party, armed and alert, slowly makes their way through the tangled roots and dark undergrowth of the mountain. As they trek through the wilderness, Xiangping remarks on how desolate this back mountain has become now that autumn has set in. Tongya smiles, pointing out that since the reed marshes provide plenty of fish and meat, the villagers have never had any reason to risk their lives up here. Xiangping turns back, looking deeply reflective as he admits he's been having some doubts lately. Tongya looks at his younger brother with curiosity, asking what exactly is bothering him. Xiangping explains that before their family rose to power, any neighboring clan could have easily taken over their lands by sending just one fetal breath cultivator. He wonders why, in over 200 years, not a single cultivator ever bothered to visit their village. He asks if they simply disdain mortals that much. Tongya touches his chin, admitting he has also spent a lot of time thinking about this mystery. He explains that according to the Immortal Master, this region lacked spiritual energy for centuries, making it completely useless to cultivators. Secondly, the nearby Da'an mountain is highly dangerous, packed with countless demons and ghosts. Living in the city is just infinitely more comfortable. But Xiangping stops him, pointing out an even worse possibility that they might have completely overlooked. He worries that their village might actually be located right on the dangerous outer border of the Qingxi sect's domain. Just like two villages fighting over a water source, borders are always the most dangerous places to settle down. With constant friction between Yu and Wu, the immortal sects are likely at each other's throats too. Tonya's expression turns incredibly grim. He agrees that they must send scouts down the ancient road immediately to figure out their exact standing. Xiangping nods, desperately hoping their family isn't just a crop casually planted on the border to act as a buffer. Suddenly, a sharp, loud rustling noise breaks the silence of the forest. Both brothers freeze, their eyes dilating in sheer shock as they realize they are no longer alone. A dark, massive shadow looms over them, casting a terrifying presence over the entire search party. We open right where we left off, staring down a massive black python coiled tightly around the ancient tree. The size of this beast is absolutely ridiculous, and the entire search party freezes in pure shock. Tonya doesn't waste a single second. Immediately analyzing the threat, realizing they need heavy firepower, he prepares to unleash the golden light technique. Bright golden energy begins to swirl around his hand as he channels his spiritual power. He is not about to let this monster catch them off guard. The giant serpent hisses aggressively, opening its massive jaws to reveal razor-sharp fangs. It is clearly not happy about these intruders stepping into its territory. With his spell fully charged, Tonya stands firm against the beast. He locks his gaze onto the snake's weak point, ready to strike. He forms a sword gesture with his fingers, directing the concentrated energy forward with a chilling command to attack. A brilliant beam of golden light shoots from his fingertips, slamming directly into the giant snake's lower jaw. The impact sends sparks and scales flying. The serpent recoils in agony, black toxic liquid spraying from its mouth as the spell shatters its defenses. A heavy shower of corrosive black acid rains down from the sky as the beast thrashes around. One of the village guards quickly warns the group to stay back. He notes that if even a single drop of that black poison touches their skin, it will peel right off. Tonya immediately commands the men to keep their eyes on the monster and retreat slowly. He knows a reckless charge right now would be absolute suicide. The giant python hangs menacingly from the thick tree trunk, its glowing orange eyes locked onto the retreating group as venom drips from its tongue. The search party backs away cautiously under the dense dark canopy of the forest, keeping their weapons raised to deter an immediate strike. Xiangping keeps his guard up, quietly asking his brother if the snake is actually going to let them walk away without giving chase. Yisheng points eager hands toward the tree, whispering that he is absolutely certain the mystical spiritual root is hidden directly behind it. Tonya holds up a hand, calmly telling him not to rush into danger just yet. He instructs the villagers to head back down and gather as many bows and arrows as they can find before heading back up the mountain. The men quickly salute and prepare to carry out the order. Tonya turns to young Chuyang, pointing out that the boy must have encountered this very snake while it was out hunting years ago. He notes that escaping with his life was incredibly lucky, but stumbling upon this spiritual root is a massive opportunity. He tells the young boy to head back to the courtyard to focus on his training, as he has no further business in this dangerous forest. Once the boy leaves, Tonya and Xiangping discuss their next moves. Tonya notes that the snake's scales are incredibly hard, as his golden light technique only managed to crack a few on its lower jaw. He evaluates the monster, concluding that it is merely a minor beast in the embryonic breathing realm that hasn't even awakened its consciousness. He questions what use hard scales are if the beast lacks intelligence. Hearing rustling in the distance, Tonya notes that Ye Sheng and the others have already returned with backup, telling everyone to get ready to work. A large group of armed villagers arrives, carrying thick ropes, shovels, and various hunting tools. An older man from the Lu clan walks up with a pipe in his mouth. He explains that his clan has plenty of experience using traps to hunt wild boars, making them perfect for dealing with this massive creature. He says that once he heard they were planning to hunt the serpent, he immediately decided to bring his men to lend a helping hand. The old man reflects on how the Li clan used to consult his family whenever there was trouble in the village, showing mutual respect. But now that the Li family has completely unified the region, he knows his clan must find a useful role under their protection to ensure their own survival. Tonya nods politely, asking what size trap they would need to dig for a massive serpent like this. The old man puffs his pipe, noting that since this is a spirit beast, normal standards don't apply. He asks if the snake is capable of flight. Xiangping stands there looking a bit dazed by his brother's intense logic, while the old man realizes the situation is much simpler than he thought. The old hunter laughs heartily, pleased that they have a clear and straightforward plan to take down the beast. Tonya entrusts the old man with directing the villagers to dig the trap, while he and Xiangping head off to prepare some special magical ammunition. The villagers immediately get to work, slamming their shovels into the dirt to dig a massive pit. Heavy ropes are wrapped securely around the surrounding trees to create a powerful pulley system. Meanwhile, a bundle of sharp wooden arrows is prepared and lined up in a quiver. Tonya channels his spiritual energy, attaching the golden light technique directly to the arrowheads. He notes the magic will only last 6 or 7 hours, but that's more than enough. Xiangping holds up one of the glowing, enchanted arrows, feeling the intense power vibrating through the wood. The massive trap is completed, covered carefully with branches, leaves, and dry grass to blend into the forest floor. An aerial view shows the completed pit trap, perfectly positioned to snare the giant python. Yisheng reports that everything is ready, and Tongya thanks the men for all their hard work. With his face full of determination, Tongya turns to the group and gives the final command to move out. The armed hunters advance stealthily through the quiet woods, heading toward the giant snake's lair. Shadows move quickly through the trees as they successfully lure the massive serpent out of its hiding spot. One of the villagers hides behind a thick trunk, sweating profusely as he whispers about how terrifyingly massive the beast is. We get a chilling close-up of the giant python's slitted orange eye, glowing with pure malice. With a deafening hiss, the snake lunges forward, spraying toxic black acid across the foliage. Tongya spots the incoming attack and yells a warning for everyone to watch out. The villagers panic, scattering in all directions as the massive beast charges. The ground rumbles as the colossal serpent smashes through the underbrush, leaving a trail of destruction. Terrified cries echo through the forest as the hunters scramble to avoid the deadly venom. The archers quickly draw their bows, firing a coordinated volley of arrows to distract the beast. The arrows strike the snake's body, but most simply bounce off its incredibly hard metallic scales. Tongya commands the men to scatter and run, trying to lure the python directly toward their hidden pit trap. The snake sweeps its heavy tail across the grass, smashing trees and sending dirt flying. Tongya and Xiangping stand their ground, calmly preparing their glowing, enchanted arrows. The giant python rears up high, casting a massive, terrifying shadow over the two brothers. It opens its mouth wide, ready to swallow them whole in one swift lunge. Tongya keeps his focus entirely steady, murmuring that they are ready. Xiangping screams for him to dodge as the snake brings its massive head crashing down. Tongya unleashes a powerful thrust with his spear, yellow spiritual lightning crackling violently around the blade. The lightning-infused spearhead pierces directly through the snake's tough scales, drawing a massive spray of dark blood. The python recoils from the heavy blow, and Tongya immediately shouts for Xiangping to take the shot. Xiangping draws his bow back to its absolute limit, aiming a brilliant, glowing arrow at the struggling beast. He releases the string, sending the enchanted arrow flying like a streak of pure light. The arrow strikes the snake with immense force, knocking the colossal beast backward and sending it sliding directly into the massive pit trap. The snake thrashes violently inside the deep pit, unable to find a foothold to escape. Xiangping charges forward, determined to finish the job and seal their victory. He plants his foot firmly on the edge of the pit, looking down at the trapped monster. He draws another enchanted arrow, aiming it directly at the serpent's head with a fierce grin. He fires, unleashing a massive explosion of light, smoke, and dirt that completely fills the pit. A final, muffled roar of agony echoes from the depths of the trap as the dust begins to settle. The villagers watch from behind the bushes in absolute silence, waiting to see if the threat is finally over. The dust clears to reveal the massive serpent lying completely still, its body covered in deep wounds. The colossal python lies dead in the clearing, its reign of terror over the back mountain finally brought to an end. Xiangping cautiously approaches the edge, looking down to confirm the kill. Tongya stands beside him, keeping his weapon ready just in case. The snake's eye is completely lifeless, confirming the legendary beast has finally been slain. To make absolutely sure, Tongya commands the men to drop a massive stone boulder into the pit. The heavy stone is cut loose, plunging straight down with immense force. The massive boulder is lowered into place, completely sealing the pit and crushing any lingering spark of life. A heavy thud echoes through the valley as the stone slammed home, burying the beast once and for all. Dust and debris rise from the pit as the final blow is delivered. The surrounding forest falls completely silent once more under the bright afternoon sun. Uncle Lu and his hunters stand on a nearby rock, looking down at the victorious scene with immense relief. The old man bursts into a hearty laugh, incredibly pleased with how smoothly their plan worked out. Tongya raises his hand, commanding the rest of the villagers to advance and secure the area. The hunters rush forward with their spears, eager to celebrate their successful hunt. They check the pit, confirming that the colossal threat is indeed gone. Tongya and Xiangping look over the massive carcass, proud of their coordinated efforts. One of the young villagers asks if the beast is truly dead, and another yells back with absolute joy. Tongya asks Uncle Lu to arrange with the brothers to lift the massive carcass and carry it back to Lijing village, and the old man gladly agrees. Tongya then turns to Xiangping and Yisheng, telling them it's time to head behind the tree to check out their prize. The three of them walk deeper into the secluded clearing behind the massive ancient trunk. Suddenly, Xiangping stops in his tracks, his foot brushing against a weathered human skull lying in the grass. Tongya notices his reaction, asking Yisheng what's wrong as the young boy stares down at the ground. In the grass lies a scattered human skeleton, surrounded by rusted weapons and old, decaying travel gear. Yisheng explains with a heavy heart that a relative went missing up this mountain years ago, and realizes the poor soul must have been swallowed by this monster while it was out foraging. Ping looks down silently, feeling a deep wave of sympathy for their lost clansman. Tonya's face turns serious, realizing just how many secrets and tragedies this ancient mountain hides. Breaking the somber mood, Yesheng suddenly points toward the shadows of a nearby cave, shouting for them to look over there. Nestled within the cave is a small mystical tree, its branches bearing several glowing, vibrant red spiritual fruits. Tonya immediately takes charge, commanding Ye Sheng to take his sturdiest men and guard this sacred spot with their lives, allowing absolutely no one to approach. We open on a beautiful, quiet sunset view over Lijing village as the successful hunters finally return, creating quite a stir among the locals. The villagers carry the massive python carcass down the paved pathway on long wooden poles, making it easily the biggest catch the village has ever seen. The sheer scale of the snake is incredible, taking a dozen sturdy men just to carry its weight back to the main gates. Smoke rises peacefully from the chimneys as the village kitchens prepare for a massive celebratory feast tonight. The hunters get straight to work, using heavy blades to peel off the thick, durable scales from the serpent's skin. A cook chops the fresh python meat on a wooden table, preparing a legendary meal for the entire community. The kitchen is absolutely bustling with activity, pots boiling and plates piled high with rare spirit meat. As night falls, a massive bonfire is lit in the center of the village courtyard, casting a warm glow over the gathering. The villagers dance and celebrate around the roaring flames, thrilled to have the mountain secured and a great harvest in hand. A wide shot shows the entire community gathered in a festive circle, enjoying the rich feast together. The golden flames crackle high into the dark sky, setting a perfect, cozy atmosphere for the evening. Two villagers clink their bowls of wine, laughing and cheering as they celebrate the successful hunt. Tongya and Xiangping sit by the warm fire, reflecting on their satisfying trip. While the giant serpent was a great hunt, discovering a genuine spiritual root is an even bigger victory for their family. Xiangping notes that since their current knowledge is too shallow to identify the spiritual root's properties or taboos, they should set it aside and consult a market later. Tongya agrees, picking up a piece of the cooked python meat with his chopsticks. He recalls the Lixia secret manual, which explains that demon beasts absorb the essence of the sun and moon, making their flesh rich in spiritual energy that strengthens the body. He suggests they let their father eat most of it. Xiangping confirms that the meat has already been sent over, along with the snake's massive gallbladder to be steeped in wine. Just then, a voice calls out to them from the shadows behind the fire. A young man approaches the two brothers, looking polite and respectful. It's Ye Sheng, who informs them that Manager Shu has arrived and wishes to speak with the main branch regarding some urgent matters. Nearby, other villagers look at Shu Wenshin with a mix of awe and skepticism, whispering about how the manager is constantly scheming while they can only offer brute strength. Two elders enjoy their wine, watching the lively scene from their seats. One elder comments that compared to Wenshan's endless plotting, Li Chengfu is the one truly blessed with good fortune, as the entire village now treats him with immense respect. Li Chengfu sits quietly, looking highly satisfied and dignified as the villagers look up to him. Another villager leans in, eagerly asking Chengfu to tell them about the miraculous methods of the immortals. Chengfu reflects quietly on his position. Knowing the Li family is thin on numbers, he is proud to be a trusted confidant, realizing his family's interests are now completely aligned with theirs. Fresh wine is poured into bowls, the celebratory drinks flowing freely. They note that Lu Rushuan is ultimately an outsider to Lijing village, meaning she has no say in their family matters. Wenshin approaches the brothers by the fire, proposing his grand plan to establish trade routes along the Guli Road and sell off the surplus goods of the surrounding villages. Tongya approves the plan, deciding that Wenshan and Lu Linfeng will handle the business together, drawing their remaining manpower from the Lu family for now. Wenshan bows in gratitude but warns that there are still a few immortal clans along the Guli Road that they must consult to establish safe trade. Xiangping agrees, commanding him to send scouts first to carefully probe the area and map out the populated spots. Wenshan salutes firmly, declaring that as a veteran traveler of the Lixia paths for over a decade, he has memorized all these tricks by heart. He laughs confidently, assuring the young masters that the mission is in safe hands. With his orders secured, the cunning manager bows out and departs from the fire. Tongya watches him go, warning Yisheng that Wenshan is incredibly sly. He instructs Yisheng to keep a very close eye on the trade business to prevent Wenshan from gaining too much independent power. Yisheng nods with a sharp smile, fully understanding his role in keeping the manager in check. He bows respectfully, promising to arrange the surveillance right away. A quiet sigh echoes as the brothers are left alone in the peaceful courtyard under the starlight. Tongya notes that buying a map from the cultivator market would have been the easiest route, but since their cultivation is still low and the market is highly risky, they cannot afford to take that chance yet. Xiangping takes another bite of the roasted snake meat, listening closely. Tongya smiles warmly, telling his brother to rest easy. He reflects that with Jinger in the sect, new disciples emerging, and a spirit root in hand, their family is thriving. He warns that if they become too greedy, they might invite unexpected disasters instead. Xiangping nods, promising to keep his older brother's wise teachings close to his heart. But as he looks into the fire, his thoughts drift to their youngest brother, wondering if Jinger is doing well in the distant sect and if his training is progressing smoothly. The bright orange flames continue to crackle, lighting up his worried face. He silently prays that if Jinger is ever bullied or facing hardships, he will remember to reach out to his older brothers. The scene shifts to the majestic Qingsui Peak of the Qingxi sect, where elegant cranes fly gracefully past the soaring towers. Jinger sits in deep, peaceful meditation on a rocky cliff under the beautiful sunset sky. He slowly exhales, opening his eyes with a satisfied look as he realizes he has finally successfully cultivated the Azure Origin Wheel. Looking at his glowing palm, he notes that their family's cultivation method is truly incredible, producing a highly condensed and powerful Moonlight Azure Origin magic power. A crane glides past the grand pavilions, highlighting the serene beauty of the immortal sect. Feeling energized, the young cultivator stands up and walks along the stone terrace. He walks into the grand training hall, surrounded by racks of ancient weapons and heavy scrolls. He approaches a display of polished swords, his eyes reflecting his eagerness to practice. He draws a sharp, elegant blade from its scabbard, the metal ringing clearly in the quiet hall. Holding the sword in a classic martial stance, he prepares to test his newfound strength. He swings the blade down with swift, powerful movements, channeling his magic power. He raises the sword high above his head, his focus completely unwavering. A close-up shows his firm, steady grip on the leather-wrapped hilt. He executes another precise, lightning-fast strike. He lunges forward, his sword cutting a sharp arc of light through the air. The blade hums with immense power as he completes a complex combination of moves. He lands gracefully on the wooden floor, leaving a faint trail of white wind behind his blade. He examines his sword, satisfied that he has mastered the basic steps of the mystic water sword art. He notes that although a third-grade art is difficult, his family's foundation made it easy to learn, and he begins to wonder how his father is doing. He stands by the large lattice window, looking out over the misty mountain ranges. He looks worried, noting that the Tungjin sect to the west has been making moves, and he fears the borders near his family might get caught in the friction. He grips his sword tightly, wishing he had the strength to protect his home right now. He looks over at a shelf filled with ancient scrolls and training manuals. He picks up a scroll to study, trying to distract himself from his worries. The scene remains calm as he delves deep into his studies. The bright light of the day slowly fades, casting long shadows across the room. He closes the scroll with a heavy sigh, his mind still filled with thoughts of his home. Brother Xiao explains that the master has ordered him to handle some affairs in Lixia Commandery, meaning he will be passing right by Lijing village. Brother Xiao smiles, asking if he has any letters or messages he wants to send back to his family, and Jinger happily agrees. Jinger rushes over to his desk, grabbing his brush and paper. His senior brother watches with a gentle smile, happy to help his younger junior. Jinger begins writing, pouring his heart onto the paper as he describes his progress. A close-up shows the wet ink on the brush tip as he writes with a steady, practiced hand. He looks soft and reflective, wishing he could see his father and brothers in person. Outside, the sun begins to set over the grand mountain peaks, casting a beautiful glow over the rooftops. The warm light reflects off the clean tiles, ending the day on a peaceful note. He seals the letter carefully, hoping it brings comfort to his family.